that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists, there is just so much to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, do you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome to Morning Glory. It's 3 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham, and we are here at the start of yet another week, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, the 14th of July. It's not Bastille Day or something like that. Or maybe sometime later in the month. Maybe that's the 21st. Anyway, I don't know. There's about to be some kind of revolution somewhere in the world. I wish it was going on here, to be honest, because looking at the papers this morning, it looks as though we're going to get more nonsense, more crap, frankly, from this government. Tax raid looms for the middle class, this is what it says on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. The definition of working people has changed, apparently. Labour has turned its focus to higher earners. So do you remember when they said working people were basically people who had a little bit of money, not very much savings, and that probably couldn't survive more than about 2 months on the money that they had if they got fired. So effectively they didn't call rich people working people. They didn't think higher earners were working people. Well, now they're coming after them because they want some of their money. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. We're going to be talking about that, of course, this morning. Front page is full of all sorts of other stories as well. The BBC's losing public trust over a string of failures. That's not news. Shouldn't even be on the front page, for heaven's sake. Diversity and inclusion staff eligible for skilled work visas. This is an amazing story. The Home Office apparently has safeguarded visa application routes for the vacations of poet, blogger and DJ. So it's great news, isn't it? I mean, those are all skilled jobs. We definitely need more bloggers. We definitely need more poets in this country. And we certainly need more DJs. This is on top of a list of people who can come in and work basically in diversity and inclusion jobs. Absolutely ridiculous. The junior doctors are on strike coming up very soon, of course. July the 25th for 5 days. Labour last night accused of crying crocodile tears over planned strikes by junior doctors as it prepares to make walkouts even easier. This, of course, is Angela Rayner's radical workers' rights bill. It's going to scrap the 50% turnout threshold which unions currently need to meet before they can actually hold a strike. Now they don't even have to get that, according to Angela Rayner. And so that's one problem. The second one is that the junior doctor strikes are poised to cost Britain almost £13 million a day for each day of those walkouts. So 5 of those will give you quite a pretty penny, I have to say. £64 million hit to the economy as working days are lost and productivity suffers. And as I've said before, it wouldn't just be for a week, because you would have a knock-on effect probably for several weeks afterwards, if not several months afterwards, as appointments get cancelled, as appointments get moved, as appointments get changed. We know they're doing a lot of that already, but if you're in the middle of that, you've got an appointment, it's being moved or it's been changed, do let us know. 0344 499 1000 is the number. We'll also be talking about the latest from the royal household, of course. Time to clear the air, papa. That's what it says on the front page of The Sun. Prince Harry is ready to talk to his dad, the King, after approving a peace summit between their aides. 3 spin doctors discussed ending the royal conflict in London, and a source said it's time to have that open channel of communications that hasn't been there. What's it all about, and what is Prince Harry up to? 0344 499 1000. We're about to do a deal to send a load of Iraqis back to Iraq. I'll believe that when I see it. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. And as you can see, if you're watching us or listening to us, you won't have seen it, but the migrant tracker appears to have now finally gone over the 45,000 barrier, 45,602. Even as we speak, Keir Starmer keeps putting out tweets about how he's smashing the gangs and he's making a difference, and the change is coming, and people are now going to get detained and as soon as they arrive on these shores and basically arrested. But I don't think it's started happening yet. Can anybody tell me? Rafe Harder-Mancour is here. Very good morning to you, Rafe.
Good morning.
The migrant tracker, 45,602. I kept seeing sort of Keir Starmer tweets over the weekend in which he said, you know, anyone who comes here illegally will be detained. It doesn't appear to have a time frame. So I don't know when the detention is happening. And if they are being detained, where are they going?
Well, they're being detained in lovely hotels. That's where they're not at His Majesty's pleasure, at the taxpayer's pleasure. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And, you know, you say 45,000. To put that into context, in the 1990s, 50,000 was the total number of legal migrants we would have into this country.
Yes.
Now that's what we get just in terms of illegal migration.
Extraordinary, isn't it? And, I mean, you say they're getting detained. I wonder if the Labour are going to come up with a new definition for detention then, because this is what they seem to specialise in. They specialise in, like we're reading at the front page of the Telegraph today, they've redefined the phrase working people, because, of course, when they kept being asked about it before the election, they kept saying, they kept struggling with the definition, and finally they sort of settled on this definition of working people, people who don't have very much money but work for it and really don't have any savings. And I think that was what Starmer actually officially said. And now they're coming after working people who are what they call higher earners because they need more tax off them.
Yeah, so now that's basically middle-class workers. Anybody who's got essentially just a decent salary, not a high salary by any measure, is going to come into the clause of the Chancellor. And there's a whole range of things coming here, you know, and this is all because of the failures of the government to hold to check its backbench MPs. And so we're basically the inability to get the most basic type of benefit cuts through Parliament has resulted in the rest of us having to pick up the tab for that. That's the reality of it. If they can't cut money from benefits, and I'm afraid it has to fall onto the shoulders of the decent British worker.
Absolutely right. Federation of Small Business recent poll found more small firms are expected to shrink or close this year than to grow, and it's the first time in 15 years that confidence has fallen so low in business. And it was only on Wednesday of last week that Keir Starmer actually stood up in Prime Minister's questions and said business confidence was at a 9-year high, which it isn't.
Yeah, no, I know one of the chaps from the FSB, and the government's also potentially looking into reviewing private sector pensions, with employers being asked essentially to pay more under the auto-enrolment scheme.
Right.
But that's coming at just the time that firms are struggling. It's, you know, it's going to suppress wages as well. So there's a multi-pronged attack on small businesses in this country.
It is ridiculous. Let's have a look at Heidi Alexander. She's the Transport Secretary, of course. She was asked about tax rises at the weekend on Sky News.
I think your viewers would be surprised if we didn't recognise that at the budget, the Chancellor will need to look at the OBR forecast that is given to her and will make decisions in line with the fiscal rules that she has set out. We made a commitment in our manifesto not to be putting up taxes on people on modest incomes, working people. We have stuck to that. We haven't put up income tax. We haven't put up VAT, apart from taking away those VAT tax breaks that people who send their children to private school get. And we obviously haven't put up employees' national insurance. But when it comes to taxation, fairness is going to be our guiding principle.
fairness. She just said we haven't put up national insurance. Well, they have put it up. They've put national insurance up. It's gone up for the employer, right? So how can they continue to repeat this nonsense?
Yeah,
and keep lying to people,
especially when we've had the governor of the Bank of England show his concern over this national insurance rise. I mean, that's also on the front page of the Times at the same time. Right. Two things can't be true together. But just think about what they're saying. They're saying that that decent middle class workers are not working people. And what sort of an insult is that to the person who's basically working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day?
Right. And they don't think anybody running a small business is a working person. Effectively, they don't think anybody running a pub or a restaurant is a working person. You know, they seem to have this... My absolute view of their definition is that what they mean by working person is somebody who works in the public sector. I think that's what they mean. But there's plenty of people working in the public sector who are getting paid over £100,000 a year, especially in the NHS.
Yeah, well, look at the City of London. You've got the head of Transport for London earning £600,000
I heard this
a
the
year.
other day.
Yeah,
600,000.
Absolutely
unbelievable.
Astonishing. And, and the Federation of Small Business is saying that more firms are expected to shrink or close this year than grow. Yeah. As you said, that's the first time in 15 years. Right. So this is all coming at the wrong time. And at the same time, we've got pressure from MPs to place higher taxes on the rich. And, of course, that doesn't just mean millionaires as well, unfortunately, with either a flat tax on assets or some sort of increase on the rate of tax on capital gains or dividend payments. So there is nowhere you can go to in this country without being hammered in some way. So it's no surprise that we're seeing this huge exodus from this country. When we discussed this a year ago, I was telling you that Britain was the third highest Britain had the third highest rate of millionaires fleeing the country. We're now number one by a huge factor. Of course. But it's not just millionaires who are leaving. It's anybody who's striving for success in life. They're going to Dubai, they're going to the Gulf, they're going to America, they're going anywhere but here. Yeah.
Well, we spoke about this last week, about a week ago, actually, because it's sort of, as so often happens on this show, we sort of hit into this vein of people ringing in and telling us stuff, and so many of them were saying that their kids, maybe having just gone to university, are now leaving the country because they don't think there's any prospect of working here, so they're going to all sorts of places, going to Thailand, going to Australia, going to America, Canada, Dubai, as you say. So it's not just wealthy people, and I was talking to some people at the weekend who know lots of reasonably successful business people, and they're all going. They're literally, I mean, I think it's actually a bigger problem than we even know.
Oh, the brain drain is. We saw this a bit in the 70s. I think this is worse. In the 70s, the doctors were leaving. Everybody who had the brightest and the best left the country. We've been able, since the 1980s and 90s, to bring people back into this country, but we're seeing it all happening again at the same time as we're importing low-skilled migrants, right? So we're exporting high-skilled earners, the very best. There's
a tax base, effectively.
Yeah, well, it's a taxodus, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
There's taxes going on, and instead of that, basically, we're expecting now low-skilled workers to be able to fund public services in this country. It's a complete Ponzi scheme.
While at the same time actually taking public services and costing us more money because of the fact that they're using the public services that we now can't afford to pay for.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a worse recipe for disaster since the Second World War. No. Worse than the 70s, I think.
Yeah, worse than even the 90-odd% tax rate that Labour government put on in the 60s. I remember Rod Stewart telling me a story that when he got on a plane to LA at some point or other because the taxes had gone up so high, and he said, and I walked into the first class section, and on the right there was Eric Clapton, and on the left there was Mick Jagger, and they were all leaving the country to go and live in America.
But the difference was back then that these public services ran pretty well.
Yeah. And there was fewer people here as well.
There were fewer people, housing was cheap, life wasn't much of a struggle. Yeah. Now the country just basically looks tired and deflated. I had a friend of mine who came over, hadn't been here for several years, and he said, my God, Britain looks really decrepit.
I know, it really does.
And that's just there's a feeling of despair you didn't get in the 60s.
Yes. Well, there was still an awful lot of optimism about, the brave new world that we were about to enter, whereas I've got Harry Cole, we'll be speaking to him later on, the Sun's editor-at-large, the headline on his column this morning in The Sun, Farewell, O Land of Nope and Gory. I mean, you could call it dope and gory, couldn't you? The land of, where you go, you smell it. It's certainly not the land of hope and glory anymore.
No, and Harry's leaving as well. I've known Harry since he was a university student in Edinburgh. He's gone to America, but that's with a job. But he's pointing out, how basically Britain has been completely decimated by, not just this government, but the last government as well, destroying any motivation to get ahead and strive in life. Entrepreneurs are fleeing the country as much as millionaires are. Yeah. And there's, the inability of politicians to get even the most basic legislation through Parliament, because the Prime Minister is beholden now to the Labour Party backbenchers who have the whip hand over him.
But it does feel, doesn't it, as though the deterioration has speeded up in the past 12 months, you know? It wasn't great under the Tories, but, you know, it wasn't quite as bad as it is now.
We're in free fall now. We need to accept and recognise this. And now, of course, we have people like Angela Rayner, who's making it easier now for organisations to have unions to strike, getting rid of the Tories' 50% rule that you had to have at least half of people voting to go on strike. So now they're going to get rid of that, which means we may be into a new era of strikes coming down the road.
But again, instead of thinking that that would be a good thing for the country, which is what obviously Angela Rayner does, you know, everybody else can see that it won't be a good thing for the country, because the doctors' strike is coming, 25th of July, which is, you know, what, later this week, or early next week, I should say, and it's going to cost £13 million a day, according to a piece in the Telegraph. So it's going to cost 64 million to the economy, so that's more money down the drain, and the knock-on effects over the course of the next few weeks and months of cancelled operations, cancelled procedures, you know, it will be like a, you know, it'll be a sort of a domino effect, won't it?
It's going to be terrible. And, of course, we've seen the public were behind the doctors for the last time.
Not this time.
But they got a pay rise, right? They had a deal. Now it seems as if the union there that's running the junior doctors is a really ideological movement.
Totally.
And they don't have the support even of junior doctors. So the number of people voting in the voting for strike action has declined hugely. And the public aren't behind it. The majority of doctors aren't behind it. So it seems as if they're just ideologues again who are ruining things for everything. And this literally is a matter of life and death.
Yes, it really is. And we saw Lord Winston back end of last week saying that he's after all of this time, after years, I think 60 or so years, maybe 55 years, he's been a member of the BMA, the British Medical Association, and he's now thrown in his membership and he's resigned because of this strike. And he's a very principled man. I think a lot of people take a view of him, and if they see that he's saying that, then he's obviously right.
Yeah, he's one of the few people brave enough, whether it be gender ideology or whether it be this, he's a man people should respect and listen to. And he's a man with a very compassionate heart, and he took his Hippocratic oath very seriously, and it seems as if these people are reneging on it, if they're willing to put people's lives at risk for a pay rise, which is unimaginable for any other person in the public sector to get one-third pay rise, essentially, is what they're looking for.
And that's on top of the previous one-third that they've already had. This from Martin, he says, "Morning, Mike. Uncharacteristically, I'm up at the crack of dawn rather than watching you on catch-up at a more civilised time. Working people now being defined. How can these absolute morons use such an expression year on year without having defined their non-expression in the first place? It tells you all you need to know about these lame politician grifters. And out between the ears, they think we're all thick as mince. Disgusting, but typical." That's Martin in Whitley Bay. Let's have a look at Heidi Alexander again yesterday on Sky, talking about how the small boats deal is going.
We believe that we've got a robust, workable deal with President Macron. It's a deal that the previous government weren't able to negotiate. And I think this is ultimately the way in which we break the model of these international people smuggling gangs that are operating in multiple jurisdictions across Europe. We have to be making prosecutions. We're doing that not just in England and Wales, but in France and Germany. I get all of that. But there's a matter. That is why we have to be working with President Macron and our allies in Europe to tackle this problem. We're not going to be able to do it on our own.
A robust deal. It seems to be all about making the deal as opposed to actually doing anything. So they've got a deal, which doesn't mean anything, but that's a great thing, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's so frustrating to see all this time and energy spent achieving nothing and then celebrating the achievement of nothing.
Yeah.
This returns deal is going to do nothing at all. 50 people a week are going to be returned when we're having hundreds of people come into this country.
Yeah.
It just seems purely performative to try to convince the public, look, we're doing something. Just don't look too closely at the details, please, because then you'll realise the emperor has no clothes. And this is not a time for playing politics. This is a time for getting serious with the biggest challenge that we face, which is uncontrolled migration into this country. And it sickens me to see people doing stuff which they must know isn't going to have any deterrent effect. We need to have mass-scale mass deportations to this country, and the pull factors are always going to be there, because as Macron said, 1/3 of the migrants coming into Europe are making a beeline for Britain.
Yes.
We just need to make Britain less attractive than France. Now, I've been saying this for years. I've been saying this. Only in the last couple of weeks have politicians cottoned on to the fact that you need to make Britain less attractive than France. Macron has now said it publicly, so at least there's a discussion about this.
Yeah.
But these stupid return deals are not the way you're doing it. That's just swapping the chairs on the Titanic.
It really is absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, today, the news story on migrants is that we're going to be supposedly doing another deal with Iraq, a migrant returns deal, which will enable the UK to send more failed asylum seekers back. Yeah, but in return for what? You know, because we already know that the deal we've got with France is not a good deal. It's a bad deal. It says Yvette Cooper struck a deal with Iraq at the end of last year to tackle the gangs, including greater intelligence sharing and more law enforcement operations. Well, they haven't arrested anybody. Yeah. Remember, they arrested that one guy who was supposedly a boat part supplier, and he's about the only one.
Yeah, I mean, smashing the gangs was always doomed to failure. Yeah. Matt Goodwin has proven this in his evidence. I've said the same thing for a long time. Why Heidi Alexander continues to talk about smashing the gangs when we know it clearly hasn't worked because they've been in power for a year and the number of people have gone up. You destroy one gang, it's like a multi-headed hydra, several more of them pop up. But, of course, now in defence of the government, the Albania deal did work, so we stopped Albanians coming over here because they were sent back home. So if something like that can be done with Iraq, where basically anyone who comes from Iraq is immediately sent back there, then that potentially could be good to see. But we don't know what we're paying for this either.
I was going to say, you don't get that kind of deal for nothing.
No.
The Iraqis are not stupid. They're going to want something in return.
Exactly, that's the question. And there's no detail about what we're giving in return.
Exactly right. Now, something that happened over the weekend, I don't know if you saw this on social media, it was Rachel Maskell, who's the Labour MP for York Central. This is her speaking some time ago. I think it was a couple of years ago, basically. This is what she really thinks about migration.
We need to shout so much more and say 20,000 is not enough, 30,000 is not enough. Saturation point, because what does it matter if we have to wait another week for a hospital visit, or if our class sizes are slightly bigger, or if our city is slightly fuller? What does it matter if things are slightly more challenging, if we have to pay a little bit more into the system? Surely it is worth it to see those lives being restored again. And surely it's worth it.
So I believe the words you used were saturation point.
I'm sorry,
this is 2015 she said that.
This woman is absolutely mad. Yeah. She is deranged.
She is.
Is she still a member of Parliament?
Is it migrant derangement syndrome?
Yeah, this is migrant derangement. I cannot believe anyone thinks that the solution to the migrant crisis is for us to reach saturation point. Yeah. We are a small island. Right. We've already got 70 million people. There are probably 1 billion people or more who'd love to come into Europe. Yes. Are we saying we should basically have... I mean, we will become the third world.
Well, that's what she's saying.
And that's what she wants us to become. I mean, this sort of nihilistic self-loathing that we see amongst the left, where basically we have to pull everything down to the lowest common denominator, and that can't be about, Peter Hitchens once said that when he was on the left they were in favour of migration. He said it wasn't because we liked migrants, it's because we hated Britain. Yeah. And we could do whatever we could to destroy Britain.
And they've got this ridiculous idea, haven't they, that everything that comes from abroad is good, apart from American stuff, of course. That's obviously terrible. But anything that comes from, the developing world is brilliant. Everybody's wonderful there. They don't go around killing each other, cutting each other's arms off. No, that doesn't happen. No, they're much more beautiful people than we are, because we're just horrible, white, bigoted, rich people.
Vote for Rachel if you want acid attacks, honour killings, cousin marriage, rape gangs. This is the way to go. I'm terrible. It's a bit early in the morning to say that, but that's the reality. But that's what she's asking for, We've seen lowering of social trust levels. People have become more introverted. They go out less. We're seeing the deterioration of public squares and public spaces. Why? Because all of the sociological evidence and economic evidence shows that the higher the ethnic diversity is in neighbourhoods, the less trusting people become, the more that they stay at home, they volunteer less, and there's a general feeling of unease and tension. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing from Bradford and Burnley and Birmingham, from the old mill towns of the north to the heart of London. Right. This is not the country that we were brought up in, and people don't feel safe in their own cities, and she wants to willingly import vast numbers of people from culturally incompatible countries. I'm sorry, it's complete madness.
It is complete madness, but it gives you a good window into the mindset of the Labour Party and now the Labour government, which hasn't really changed in large part from that particular point of view. We'll come back on that in a moment, because coming up we'll talk a bit about King Charles. I don't want to call him Prince Harry the Herbert, as he's formerly known, and what on earth is going on with secret meetings around whether they should have some kind of peace deal signed. 6:24.
there is this anti-Semitism that does exist, and for some reason, middle-class people, I'm not saying they're any better or any worse than working-class people, what I'm saying is that the people who wouldn't dream of saying something that was racist against black people, or Muslims, or women, or gay people, or whatever, but they say it against Jews. Why is that, do you think?
Well, several reasons. Number one, I'd say first and foremost, is because that people wrongly think the vast majority of Jewish people are white, and therefore you can't be racist against someone who's white. It's exactly the same as we see with anti-Christian.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:27. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Of course, Rafe Hardermanku is here as well. Sean in Gloucester says, morning, Mike. Are we now seeing the catastrophic results of being ruled by the left? It started with Blair and is now supercharged under Keith Starling, crazy bacon muncher Millie Pratt, moronic Lammy, Rachel Thieves from Customer Complaints, and Sadist Khan. The Tories were no better, which is why we need a clean slate. Well, the Tories weren't anywhere near as bad as this, I have to say. One from Johnny, who says, my father, who died 12 years ago, was a doctor. He resigned in 2025, he resigned 2025 from the BMA because he saw them as a bunch of political troublemakers, and that's certainly the way it seems to be going, as far as we can see. Let's talk about the Royals this morning, because the Sun, the Mail and the Mirror have all got this on the front page. Time to clear the air, Papa, is what it says on the front of the Sun. Prince Harry's ready to talk to his dad, the King, after approving a peace summit between their aides. And they've got a big spread inside. I have summit to say, hopes for a King's meeting in September, but apparently William has been frozen out.
Yes, we don't know who initiated these secret discussions, but they were leaked to the press, which has caused consternation on both sides.
Yeah.
Now, of course, knowing Harry's reputation for leaking everything to the press, you could be forgiven for wondering whether they may have been involved in doing this, although that would be an act of Harry-Kiri, jettisoning their own talks. Prince William's aides weren't present at this meeting between the King's aides
this meeting took
and
place
Harry's aides.
in a sort of private club.
It took place at the Royal Overseas League, which isn't really an exclusive club, but it's a club in St James's, looking on to...
Is that the one that's looking onto Green Park?
Looks onto Green Park.
I think I've been there. I guess I've got friends who've stayed there, actually. I think I had lunch there once.
Yeah, it's where all the old ladies from Canada and Australia used to stay when they came to London. They used to be there,
sort of Commonwealth thing, isn't it?
Commonwealth thing. But if you're going to have a secret meeting, my advice is don't sit on a high-up balcony overlooking a park where the paparazzi can pat you.
Well, my experience of these things is that you wouldn't necessarily find people sitting there unless they wanted to be photographed and had tipped somebody off that they were going to be there, because paparazzi, generally speaking, don't hang around in Green Park waiting for somebody.
I walk through there quite a lot, and I've not seen any...
They don't tend to hang around there, and the picture has been taken. And the thing that I find interesting is, I didn't know this until today, that the King's new... personal director of communications is Tobin Andre, who's a guy that I used to work with years ago as a journalist. He's an old Etonian, comes from a very wealthy family. I think his family have got a great big house down in Sandbanks, down in Dorset, down in Poole. And he worked in newspapers for quite a long time. Now, I'm certainly not making any allegations that he might have been involved in the leak as well, but he certainly would know who to call.
Yeah, well, I have no comment to make on any of that. But there's talk that, the King has closed the door firmly to Prince Harry during the whole legal issues where Harry was taking his father's government to court. But now all of that's over. The King, does believe his son could be a prodigal son who comes back. So there's talk that maybe even in September, when Harry's next in the country, there could be some meeting, or maybe in 2027 when he has the Invictus Games taking place here. But certainly all of this discussion is about the King and Prince Harry warming up their relations. No mention of Prince William. As I've said for many times, yes, in the medium term, I can see the King and Prince Harry coming back together. But as far as Prince William, even in the long term, I think that's a non-starter.
And you can't really see Meghan coming back to this country ever, can you?
I think Meghan is too scared to come back to Britain because of the boos she'll receive inevitably, and I think she understands that. There's a reason. So of course it's very easy to say, oh, that this is a security risk to my family. That's a convenient excuse, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. And Matt Wilkinson, the Royal Editor of the Sun, has written quite an interesting piece in which he says, is it the case that Meredith Maines and Liam Maguire, who are both sort of people that work for Harry, are attempting here to drive a wedge by not inviting anybody from William's camp and to drive a wedge between the King and William?
I'm not so sure, because I don't think the King would have taken part in this were it not with the knowledge of Prince William. They work close together so much on so many things. I think Prince William would have been informed that this was in the cards.
I mean, is it not possible as well that this is a meeting that was done without the King's knowledge, perhaps? And that maybe the PRs are kind of trying to figure something out which they could then take to him and go, this is what we
that would be that's possible. That would be a very brave move. I know what I would be thinking if my employees did that behind my back. I know how I would be feeling.
Yes, I know. But it is. I mean, I think it's a bad look for Tobin Andre, because it seems to me that he should not be being photographed talking to people in public in any way, shape, or form. You know, he's the communications chief of the King, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, I mean, it does suggest.
Haven't they got anywhere else they could meet behind closed doors?
Yeah, but that's just it. There are lots of places to go rather than a balcony in a very prominent location. So it does call into question many things.
Yes, absolutely right. Now, just before we take another break, let's talk about go back to the visa problem that we've got in this country. A piece on the front page of the Telegraph: diversity and inclusion experts can come to the UK on a skilled work visa. Isn't that great? Because we don't have enough of those, do we? Diversity and inclusion experts. What do we need them for?
This is remarkable. So this, once again, is the Home Office. As I said, the Home Office is the fifth column in this country, working to undermine it. It seems they're doing whatever they can. So now they have safeguarded visa application routes for poets, bloggers and DJs, right? Because, of course, Britain, the world's greatest land of literature, needs to bring in poets. We haven't got any of our homegrown poets.
Definitely.
And, of course, no DJs here, of course. You know, the country that basically gave birth to so much dance music. We need to bring in people from Tuvalu or whatever to do all of this. But remarkably, they have tightened up something. So you can no longer come here as a skilled worker if you are a magician or a social media influencer.
Oh, well, that's good.
Which, until now, those were both guaranteed skilled. How a social media influencer is a skilled worker. I mean, it makes a complete mockery.
And it's a sort of a self-titled job, isn't it? I mean, if somebody said to you, what are you? I'm a social media influencer. You go, well, how do you prove that? You know, have you got more than 100 followers on Twitter? What's the thing?
I think it needs to have more than 10,000 followers on Twitter to be a micro.
Oh, I could be one of those.
Micro influencer.
So I could be a social media influencer if I wanted.
Yeah, put that on your tax form.
Yeah.
But the civil service alone has spent £27 million of taxpayers' money on diversity officers in 1 year, and NHS trusts are spending £13 million a year on the salaries of diversity officers. So if you want to solve the doctors' crisis, why don't you fire these diversity officers and give that money to doctors?
And amazingly, it was funny when you read into these stories right down towards the end. Apparently this list, which includes bloggers and poets and DJs, is known as the temporary shortage list. So we're not short of poets in the long term. It's just temporary that we haven't got any. Have they all gone somewhere?
Have you noticed this temporary shortage in poets?
I haven't, actually.
My gosh, you know.
But now that you mention it, I haven't seen a poet for a while. You just think, what's going on with these people? It's absolutely remarkable, isn't it? Changes to take effect from next Tuesday. So it means that certain jobs, which, as you say, were deemed skilled and will lose their eligibility to achieve. So again, what they do is they now, so if you're going to pretend to be a magician, get in before Tuesday, because that's they just issue these warnings. And again, do you have to be a decent magician or just say you're a magician?
Who determines this? Yes, well, Rachel Reeves wishes she was a magician, I suppose, now.
Yeah, absolutely. Howard in Suffolk says, morning, Mike and Rafe, brilliant discussion, keep it up. Your level makes other flagship morning radio programmes look like CBeebies. It's very kind. We try our best. Coming up, we're going to hear more from Heidi Alexander, because she wants to dig up your pavement, basically, and put a load of electric cables underneath where you live so that you can charge the electric car that you don't have and you don't want and you can't afford. Apart from that, it's a brilliant scheme. I wonder if she's got an electric car. We'll find out after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:37. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the home of common sense. David Leamington Spa says, watch the Live Aid anniversary on Saturday. What a pleasure to see great bands, great crowds, and guess what? Not a Palestinian flag or a pride flag in sight. Great show, keep up the good fight. Yeah, the 80s, yeah, remember that? I do, because there certainly weren't any Palestinian flags, there certainly weren't any pride flags. Let's have a voice note from Darren.
Morning, Mike, down from Norfolk here. So, I turned up to work last night. About 7 o'clock, I come here. I woke up 4 o'clock this morning. I started on with my work for the week. I'm not getting home until Saturday dinner time. I'll probably work, I don't know, 75 hours this week, I think. 70 to 75 hours most weeks. Why do I feel like I'm about to get absolutely mugged by this government? They're going to the tax rate will be on people like me. I said, we're the ones that work hardest, but we're the ones that get punished most. You don't get more working class than working like I do. It's just, why do I feel like I'm going to get mugged? Anyway, great show. Miserable start to the week. Bye.
Darren, thank you very much indeed. They used to have that date, didn't they? The tax-free date of the year, which was when you stopped working for the government. And I think it moved, did it not, from something like, it was April, it moved to May. It'll probably now be June, which means basically half the year you're working for the government just to pay the tax that they want to charge you.
Yeah, and it's people like Darren, decent people working hard, not, living life to excess or anything else, upon whose shoulders all of this is going to fall, and it's so deflating and so defeating and depressing, and not everybody has the luxury of leaving the country and going to Dubai and
he's
so
working
forth.
75 hours this week, and he'll be probably working for at least half of those hours for the government. And that's really depressing. Well, let's talk about this government, because they've got some more ideas, right? Heidi Alexander, again, the Secretary of State for Transport, wants to dig up your pavement. Check this out.
Making £25 million available to councils so that they can provide financial support to households who want to put in a cross-pavement gully so that you can safely run the cable across the pavement. We're also investing £30 million in depot charging infrastructure, and also making sure that public organisations like the NHS have the charging infrastructure there as well.
But making it easier to plug in might not be enough. I mean, are you going to do something a bit more radical? There were reports this morning suggesting actually there might be hundreds of millions of pounds available to give people grants. So are you going to help people shell out for one, and how much cash might be on the table?
So we are going to be making some announcements later this week on how we make it more affordable for people to buy an electric vehicle.
So there will be grants.
We recognise that the high upfront purchase cost of EVs is something, alongside the charging infrastructure, that puts people off.
So they're going to use public money, i.e. your money and my money, to give people money to buy themselves a nice car.
Yeah, to give middle-class people... This is all about priorities, right? Right. There are cutbacks happening everywhere. We see our public services going into free fall, and yet magically there's hundreds of millions of pounds available to tear up your streets, create these cross-pavement gullies, which is a new term for me. But, I mean, it's all nonsense, isn't it? Because the density of housing in cities, which is where they're going to have to do this, is so high, it's impossible. Not just apartment buildings of flats, but also houses which are now converted into flats. They weren't designed to have cars, 5 cars for one house or whatever. There's no way you can put in enough infrastructure to charge all of these vehicles, and yet they're going to spend hundreds of millions of pounds, let alone how much carbon emissions will be involved in tearing up all of these pavements.
And also everywhere you go in London at the moment, and probably everywhere else in the country, there's roadworks everywhere. They're going to start digging up pavements, and so people won't be able to park there anyway. But what do you think would be the answer to this question? Heidi Alexander, do you have an electric car?
You would like all of us to buy more electric cars.
I would. If I had an EV, I'd be asking myself questions about how I would get the electric cable across.
So you don't
to the
have
car.
one. So the Transport Secretary doesn't have an electric car, but you're telling everyone else to have one.
I don't have an electric car, Laura, but I'm a lot like, you know, millions of people in this country who I bought a new car about 6 years ago. I'm thinking about the next car that I will purchase, and it will definitely be an electric vehicle. I'm not in the habit of changing my car on a yearly basis, expensive as it is.
Oh dear. So once again, you know, do as I say, not as I do.
It boggles the mind, isn't it? You know, if you're appointed Transport Secretary, you must think, at some point, somebody's going to ask me, do you have an electric vehicle? Her press team, her advisors, nobody thought this question might come up. Unbelievable.
And it's the same with, I think it's Darren Jones's wife, who was once on Laurie Kunzberg's show. She's quite a big cheese in the climate. I think she's on the Climate Change Committee. She's some kind of climate, you know, zealot, has been going on about it for ages. And, of course, she was telling everyone, you know, she was sitting there very happily one day talking about how she doesn't have an electric car either.
I remember.
Because it's just not, it's not really practical for the kids and the dog and, you know, the tennis rackets. And so we just need a bigger car. And obviously we might get one. But also flying is really bad as well. And do you still fly? Oh, yeah, well, only to climate summits. She actually said those words. I only fly to climate summits when it's important.
Yeah, but you're telling me she's never flown to Spain or Portugal or France.
Oh.
Give me a break.
I know, but this is the trouble. They're all such hypocrites, and that's what people are sick to death of. Absolutely, utterly ridiculous. Can you explain to me, says Simon, why illegal migration is called illegal? If that were the case, surely those arriving would either be imprisoned or sent home. If I committed a crime, would I be given a credit card, a phone and a free hotel? I don't think so. I think it's encouraged migration, not illegal migration. As a new dad of a 6-day-old daughter, I'm terrified as to what is happening to us here in the UK. Something has to change. Have a great day. Well, of course, there are those people who would rather you didn't call it illegal migration and you actually called it irregular migration. That's the buzzword of the left, isn't it?
That's a new term favoured of the left. Yes. Well, whenever I say deport all criminals, that means all illegal migrants. Because if you're here illegally, you are a criminal de facto.
Yeah. Well, this is the view of the Trump administration, isn't it? And whenever you get Caroline Leavitt there in the White House, the brilliant press secretary, and when she was, I remember when she was challenged by some of the sort of more lefty reporters in the White House press corps, who said, you know, who are you deporting? How do you know that they've committed crimes? And she's like, if you enter this country without permission, you have committed a crime. Therefore, you're going back out.
Bingo.
And it's very straightforward.
Yeah, it's not rocket science.
It's not difficult, is it? 6:44, I'm Mike Graham. Rafe's here as well, and we'll be back after this.
Gift cards, takeaways, driving lessons, even getting stuff from Fortnum and Mason, for crying out loud. Crazy golf. I mean, it does make you go crazy, doesn't it?
It certainly does. I mean, this is no big surprise. I mean, in the last 5 years, there's a thing called the Asylum Seeker Support Scheme. This is taxpayers' money. In the last 5 years, we've spent £6.6 billion.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 6:48. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. It's looking a bit dark and stormy outside, but the sun is attempting to shine through. We've had some rain this morning. Don't know what it's like where you are, but it's cooled down a bit from the big hot weekend that we had. We'll be announcing the winner of the Oasis competition, by the way, that we had later on in the show. First of all, though, I'm here with Rafe Hardelman-Koo. Rafe, we've got some other cabinet ministers who have been busy over the weekend. I don't know whether you saw this, but this is Rachel Reeves announcing that she's going to give £1.5 million to promote chess. Have a look at this.
Have you finished the ball? Yes. Thank you. Very good. Well done, everybody.
I must admit, I'm not an aficionado particularly of chess tournaments, but I didn't know you went around high-fiving people at them. It's more of a basketball thing, isn't it?
Well, you know, I think chess is great for kids to do, to get involved with for their mind and so forth. But it reminds me of the story that Guido Fawkes put out last year, because she was claiming to be British girls champion under 14 for chess.
Yes.
And then it turns out that she wasn't British girls under 14 chess champion. She ranked, I think it was 26.
26, yes.
In the whole thing.
And then,
so
of course,
the great ratio for customer complaints is also not...
And how long did you work at the Bank of England for, Rach? 10 years. Shut up.
Is there no end to this woman's lack of talent?
Yeah, absolutely right. But also, ability to reinvent the facts, you know, because let's not forget, she's also been accused of plagiarising a book. She's been accused of being, shall we say, untruthful about the time that she spent at the Bank of England and what she actually did there. She claims she'd been there 10 years, she was only there 5. The same with Halifax Bank of Scotland. You know, she worked in customer complaints. She wasn't, as she put it, in retail banking. You know, I mean, is there anything about these people that is actually real?
And now, of course, she's been checkmated by her own backbench MPs, hasn't she?
Well, you know, I was saying to Christian earlier, you know how this kind of thing comes about. You have some little spad, aged 22 and a half, who goes, here's what we do, Rachel, we reinvent you as somebody that people like. So what things have you done that people like? Oh, yes, you played chess. Let's make a thing of that. And again, what's she giving £1.5 million to, and who's going to get it?
Well, you know why? Because they're trying to once again portray her as being some great genius, right?
Yeah.
She's like a chess grandmaster.
Yeah, right.
She knows the moves. And then, well,
like
as
Bobby Spacek.
As we can quietly see, she doesn't have a clue what she's doing.
She really doesn't.
I think she thinks she's playing drafts, not chess.
Snakes and ladders, baby. Here's what she said back at the beginning about difficult decisions.
That's why I'm focused on taking the difficult decisions to fix the foundations of our economy so we can rebuild Britain and make every part of our country better off.
Yeah, how's that going? I'd say pretty badly. I mean, every part of the country is actually worse off. Another story on the front of the Telegraph, BBC losing public trust over a string of failures. As I said at the top of the show, this is hardly news, but we probably should cover it. Apparently, this is something being said by the head of Ofcom. This is following the Gaza report, you know, the whole business with Greg Wallace recently, and just the kind of ongoing problem with the way that the Israeli conflict is being reported.
Well, it just goes to show you how out of touch everybody is, even the head of Ofcom here. BBC losing, you know, past tense is, I think, required here. They've lost public trust. It's not just over over Gaza documentaries. It's not just over Glastonbury. You know, it's Jimmy Savile. It's the unfair reporting of the Southport protests.
Yeah.
It's the fact that, you know, when you had the when Dame Casey's report on the rape gangs came out last month. The day before that, Newsnight did an expose onto the rape gangs. And what were they focusing on? A woman who was abused by white men. And we can see we're being gaslit by the national public broadcaster. And it's one thing if it's ITV doing it, but we're all invested. We all pay for this, and we're not being served.
It is really just ridiculous, isn't it? But as you say, quite right to put it in the past tense as opposed to the present. The other one, just speaking of Southport, there's a new scheme out, or there's a suggestion there should be a new scheme out to detect people who are obsessed with violence before they kill. This is a new report into the role that Prevent played, right? Because we, of course, famously, ages ago, had Lord Carlisle on, who was the first sort of safeguarder of the Prevent scheme, who kept saying to me, you know, it does what it says on the tin, it does everything that it's supposed to do. And I was like, well, it clearly doesn't. And since then, this same reporter has come out with two very strong criticisms of Prevent. Basically, this is from the KC David Anderson, the interim reviewer of Prevent. He's basically said that the whole business of trying to spot these people is hopeless.
And that's because the priorities are in the wrong place. You know, on July the 4th, I was at a party with William Shawcross, who wrote the major review into the failings of the Prevent programme. And he showed, of course, we know that 90% of the terror threats are coming from the Islamic world, from British Muslims, and yet the Prevent programme is focusing everything on the far-right molehill rather than the Islamic terrorist mountain. And this is the reason, is political correctness is so endemic in our institutions that they're wasting money, time, energy and resources on chasing precisely the wrong issues and the wrong causes.
Yeah, it really is extraordinary how they continue to get it wrong. And again, this latest announcement from David Anderson, apparently they say is likely to cause David Amos's family to press more for a public inquiry into his death, because he was of course stabbed to death by somebody who had been on the Prevent watch list and had been sort of, you know, told that everything was fine and he wasn't going to do anything.
Yeah, there needs to be an investigation onto that front, but also this is about resources as well. I mean, look, we've got 43,000 people on the terror watch list, which our security services are having to monitor. 90% of them are Muslim. That's 1 in 100 Muslims. That's only going to grow over the next 25 years as the population increases. Here, with the Prevent program, if you're going to really focus on people who are attracted to violence and extremism as well, that's going to be another sort of 100,000 people or so. How are we funding? Where are the resources of people who are going to be... Where are you going to find the people to actually monitor these people?
Yeah, and also they've kind of caused this themselves because of Keir Starmer's ridiculousness around Southport. If you remember, he said, well, it wasn't called a terrorist attack because, you know, there was no terrorist ideology. And that's where the problem seems to lie, because this is going to be for people who have no terrorist ideology. But we know they probably do.
Yeah, and it's also cultural. So I think we need to redefine what we mean by terrorism, because a lot of this is motivated from people who are coming here as asylum seekers and the children of asylum seekers. So the Southport murderer was the child of an asylum seeker. Because he wasn't himself an asylum seeker, that enabled the media to say, oh, this is disinformation. But if you look at the number of terror attacks, the number of horrific stabbings and murders we see in this country, a huge proportion of them are the children of asylum seekers. And there's this belief somehow that because you are a Welsh choir boy, that you're immune from what happened to your parents. I'm sorry, there's a direct connection here. And the
same goes to the Manchester Arena bomber.
No one is talking about the children of asylum seekers, and they should fall under the same category.
Yeah, I think absolutely right. A couple of other stories to mention just before we hit the end of the hour. Slightly worryingly, Air India crash investigators are examining the medical records of one of the pilots after it was claimed that he suffered from depression and mental health issues. This is coming after the report of the weekend that somehow they believe that the fuel supply was cut deliberately.
Yeah, it's a very tragic story. We should say we don't have definitive proof of that's what happened here, but certainly he took over the last 3 or 4 years. He was given leave because of his mental health issues and his depression, his ailing parents he had to look after and so forth. But it does call into question how it can be so easy for a pilot to down a plane, if that's what happened, by whether deliberately or by error. To turn off the fuel supply to the engines, you need to pull out the switch and then do it. So it requires some effort, but it's still very easy. There should be some override by the co-pilot or something.
You would think.
I think that needs to be investigated. But it's interesting that on this occasion they haven't called for all planes with a similar ability to be grounded.
No.
Which in the past you would have had.
I'm surprised at that, actually, because there's another Boeing plane, which you would have thought. I mean, certainly, I think for until it's explained exactly how it happened, you know, people will be worried about getting on a plane like that because they might think it's got a fault. But if it hasn't got a fault, then we should know, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's absolutely right. Now, one for those of you who are Epicureans, perhaps, Brie runs short after soft cheese import ban. Now, this is a story from Italy, right? I didn't know anything about this before. I've never heard of it before. There's been an outbreak, apparently, of lumpy skin disease. I'm sorry about this. It's very early in the morning. If you're eating buffalo mozzarella, make the most of it, because there might not be any for a while. But apparently, Brie, fresh goat's cheese, and the best buffalo mozzarella is going to run short because there's now been a ban put on it in Europe.
Yeah, this is about unpasteurised cheeses. Yeah. I love Brie. Brie and Camembert, all this stuff is I absolutely adore. I like it too much, actually. But there's no harm to humans here. The reason that they're not bringing it into the country is to prevent UK animals being affected in some way. I don't know anyone who feeds Brie to their animals. But,
no, I don't.
But anyway. That's why, and that's but let's hope it doesn't last very long because I think it's picnic season, and who doesn't like having Brie down at the picnic? I just remember Benny Hill's fastest milkman in the West.
Yes.
So I was thinking about pasteurised. I can't remember the
there was something like that. Suppliers can, here's a typical EU little sort of bump in the road. Suppliers can import unpasteurised cheese from the two countries, i.e. France and Italy, if it's produced before the deadline. They can also import pasteurised cheese, but this requires paperwork including charts that show temperatures and timings, and importers said border officials were unable or unwilling to read charts in French or Italian, meaning that lorries were held up until English files were provided. I mean, seriously. Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah, well, that's basically welcome to modern Britain.
Yeah, and Patricia Mitchelson, the founder of La Fromagerie, a place I know well, says that stock worth thousands of pounds is being spoiled at the border. Can you imagine having to work in a place where there's a lot of rotting cheese?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's a right pong over the...
Absolutely right, incredible. And then finally, I suppose, there's always one of these stories in the papers in the summer, the seagulls dive-bombing post office workers in somewhere in Norfolk, which is on, I think, page 25 of The Sun. It's the usual case of just some over-enthusiastic seagulls and some posties who are fearing for their lives. Poor things.
Hopefully there's some videos of it. There's nothing funnier than a postman being chased by animals. I think is one of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, there'll be some listening this morning. I probably won't thank you for that, but thank you very much indeed. Rafe Harder-Mancourt, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. We'll be back with more, of course, from all the news this morning that is fit to print, and also much, much else besides. I'm Mike Graham. This is Morning Glory. See you after the news.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because, as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham. The sun is trying to come out. We had some rain early this morning, so it's cooled down a bit, which is rather nice. It was rather hot at the weekend, wasn't it? But don't worry, we've got another heat wave coming. It's going to turn into a pretty nice summer. And of course, all the doom and gloom merchants are out there saying, you better buy an electric car because, you know, that will save the climate, won't it? Well, Heidi Alexander, who is, of course, the Secretary of State for Transport, not only would want you to buy an electric car, she also dig up your road in order so that you can charge your electric car that you don't want, even though you don't have anywhere to park it. So there's all kinds of questions. We've got many questions about this, and we will be asking those people that are important on our show this morning exactly how this new electric car revolution is going to work. Let's have a word with James.
Morning, Mike. James from Blackburn. Absolute nonsense, that woman, about electric cars. Well, I don't even know her name. What's her name? Rubbish. So they're going to dig up roads, right? Well, where I live, old mill towns, mate. So row after row of terrace streets. And also, there's a gym at the bottom of my road. So she can put a cross pavement gully all she likes. But half the time, I'm parked about 500-600 yards from my house. So is this gully going to go down the road, then across the road? Just shut up.
It's true. They don't know what they're talking about. Does everybody in this government actually have a real grasp on what people's lives are actually like? I mean, we're hearing this morning there's going to be another tax raid on the middle classes. They're going to redefine the phrase working people to be not just people in the public sector, not just the people in the unions that they like, who haven't got much money and apparently haven't got many savings. No. We're going to change the definition of working people because we're going to come after you if you've got any money at all. If you've got any money, right, we'll take half of it. Thanks very much indeed. What do you mean we're already taking half of it? Well, can we take 3/4 of it? I mean, this is socialism, literally at its worst kind of face, because all they want is to continue to milk the people who work hard for a living in order to pay for those who don't. It's as simple as that. You know, old Heidi Alexander, who happens to be the Secretary of State for Transport, wants to spend £65 million, as if it's her money, which it isn't, on putting a load of electric car chargers all over the place in front of your house, if you have one. In front of your drive, if you have one, in front of your front garden, if you have one. The chances are you don't have one. The chances are if you've got a car parking space, it's not always in the same place, and it certainly isn't always in front of your house. So who uses your car parking charger, your electric car charger, when you're not able to park in front of it? Is it sort of a communist state we're now producing, where everybody just uses everybody else's chargers and nobody pays for it? Oh no, I know who we get to pay for it. Working people. Just tax them some more. Also, coming up, it looks as though the UK is going to strike a deal for Iraqi migrants to go back to Iraq. I believe that when I see it. And also, what about those doctors' strikes, right? £13 million a day is what they're going to cost us. 0344 499 1000. We'll have a bit on the King and his son Harry as well. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Time for another voice note. Here's Perry.
This government is such a joke. A few weeks ago, Mike, weren't it? We're on a war footing. We should be preparing to go to war. And then what's he doing? Oh, well, that depends on GDP. And I know, let's make everyone have an electric car, even though we've got very vulnerable electric cables running across the seabed, which would be the Russians' first target. So then we wouldn't have any vehicles that could run anyone around. And let's wait and see what GDP is like next year. Well, can you imagine Churchill standing on the cliffs of Dover, looking over, seeing Hitler looking at him through a pair of binoculars, and all his generals saying, we need planes, we need tanks, we need this, and Churchill saying, well, let's wait and see what the GDP is like. And also, we must make sure that certain councils have electric buses first.
Oh, I mean, it's tragic, but it's true, isn't it? Let's talk to Ben Habib, leader of Advance UK. Ben, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
I mean, I'm sorry for chuckling at this, because I know that many people feel that this is the worst government they've ever had, and they're worried about their future and their finances and their mortgage and everything. But, you know, this is typical, isn't it, of Labour, that they've sort of spent the weekend arguing about stuff that nobody's interested in. You know, you must all buy an electric car, but don't worry, we're going to make it easy for you to buy one. We're going to give you a grant. Very possibly, we might even give you some money towards it. And then we're going to give you a free electric charge point. But nobody knows who's going to pay for it. You know, it's all pie in the sky BS, frankly.
And at the same time is spending money on inducing people to buy electric cars. They're busy penalising car wholesalers and manufacturers if they sell too many internal combustion engine cars. So they're damaging our producers, burdening the state with more debt. And as you say, taxes are likely to rise as well in order to drive home their ideological experiment with net zero. And I think it attests really to what you were saying earlier on, Mike, is does the government really have any clue about what people's lives are really like?
I don't think they do. I really honestly don't think they do. I mean, we were just talking about it just here in the break about, you know, how would it exactly work? Most people who live in a city, unless they're very wealthy, don't have off-street parking. You park your car as close to your house as you can. And then, you know, generally speaking, it's not in front of it. So if you've got your own charge point in front of your own house, and you can't park there, what happens then? You know?
Exactly. It's just daft as brushes, isn't it? And but the other thing it attests to as well is this creeping interference of the state in just about everything we do, including where we park our cars. And the reason government spending is so high, the reason government debt is at a post-World War II high, is because of its interference, its continued interference in our private lives. Government has forgotten that actually it needs to provide some basic services, including the defence of the realm, which it seems to have turned its back on, and allow the private sector otherwise to get on with running itself. The less they do, the better, frankly. Let us get on with our own lives. We know how to run ourselves. We don't need a nanny state effectively directing every movement that we make during our daily lives and burdening the state with debt and taxing us to the hilt for that pleasure. We just want to be left alone.
Right. And to be given as much money of our own to keep as well. Because,
absolutely.
You know, I can't remember what the date is now, but I think it's sometime in sort of end of May, beginning of June, you know, Tax Freedom Day, when you've actually, you know, if you're paying taxes in the normal way, that you actually start making money for yourself. It's practically half the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's awful. We've taxed and borrowed ourselves into a complete cocked hat. And the medicine is, again, as you mentioned earlier, that the Chancellor wants to impose on us now is even more taxation. They haven't learned that there's only an amount of blood that you can get out of this goose.
Yeah.
And the goose is probably, you know, blood dry now. And the only way of really getting the United Kingdom's economy going is to dramatically cut regulations, cut taxes, and cut benefits and welfare. It's obvious what needs to be done, but they haven't got the wherewithal to do it.
Well, they now can't cut welfare. Not only can they not cut welfare because of the welfare bill being kiboshed by the backbenchers on the left side of the party, is that you now can't even have a conversation about cutting welfare because it's now been decreed by Labour that everybody who gets welfare benefits deserves them.
Absolutely. I mean, what they tried to cut last week was 1.67% of the welfare bill.
Right.
It was a rounding error, and they couldn't even get themselves to cut that. And, you know, if you can't get a grip of government spending, you will never be able to reduce taxes. If you can't reduce taxes on working class, middle classes, small to medium-sized businesses, sole traders, they will cease to work. We have 7.7 million people in this country on universal credit. That is testimony to a broken labour force, a broken economy. And people forget, you know, when Thatcher inherited the broken labour force that she did in 1979, the first thing she did People rewrite history because I've had it played back at me the wrong way. But the first thing she did was cut taxes. She knew she had to get Britain working again. And we've got to get Britain working again. Taxes need to come down. The welfare state needs to be slashed. And one way to really get the organism, the economic organism moving forward positively without any cost to the state is deregulating. Get rid of net zero. Get rid of this employment rights bill that they're rushing through Parliament. Get rid of the renters reform bill that they're rushing through Parliament. Stop all these extra regulations which are hampering our ability to make money. Ditch them. Liberate the economy. Effectively do what Trump is doing. Get rid of all these regulations, let the United Kingdom flourish.
Yeah, exactly right. Because the point is I'm looking at the front page of the Times today. The Bank of England now ready to make large cuts to interest rates if the jobs market shows signs of a pronounced slowdown. Well, hello, I know Andrew Bailey's not the brightest tool in the box. It's already slowing down. As you've not seen the figures of GDP, growth down 2 months in a row. He basically, this is how he puts it. Andrew Bailey told the Times there's consistent evidence of businesses adjusting employment. Does he mean people getting fired? Because that's what I think he means. Why doesn't he just say people losing their jobs?
Exactly. And the increase in employers' national insurance in the October budget was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
She said that wasn't a tax on the working class. It absolutely was, because if employers are paying that tax, they either increase the cost on their customers and risk going out of business, or they sack people.
Yeah.
I mean, you either cut costs or you increase revenue. If there's no ability to increase revenue, you have to reduce costs. And reducing costs means sacking people,
right,
which means you get more people on universal credit, a greater burden on the state, less revenue for the state because they're not earning any money on which they can pay their taxes. We are in a downward spiral out of which we will not emerge without a complete revision of how the economy is managed.
Yeah, and it seems like everything that they have done, every single sort of economic lever that they've either pushed or pulled has reacted in making the economy worse. The VAT on schools, it made it more difficult for people to find places to put their children into state schools. So they're now ferrying people around in taxis and buses to different counties because they haven't got enough space in the state system. They haven't hired any extra teachers. They've already admitted that was a mistake. The national insurance fiasco has caused rack and ruin to an awful lot of companies. I think 69,000 jobs lost in hospitality alone, right? And the list just goes on and on and on. The winter fuel allowance U-turn means they won't be getting any money from that. The disaster over the rape gangs inquiry, just everything that they've done.
Everything is broken.
Has just literally fallen into a sort of a pit of dust.
Absolutely. And the VAT on schools is a really good example. They forecast that they would raise £1.7 billion, which was an incredibly naive forecast.
Yeah.
They just assumed all people would pay the same fees that they were paying, but 20% more, and there would be no change in people's behaviour.
Yeah.
Of course, people withdrew their children from school. Schools went bust. I believe 6,000 pupils, which would have been in private school last year, are now in state schools. So you've seen schools go bust, revenue go down, economic activity reduce, and the state be burdened with an extra 6,000 pupils it now needs to look after. As you said, ferrying them often in taxis in order to get to the right school where they can be accommodated. It's an utter disaster.
Yeah.
And they've got to recognise that people have to be given the opportunity to run their own lives. And that involves reducing taxes so they can use their money in the way that they need to do it in order to better their own personal positions. That gives them the aspirations they need to work. And if they have the aspiration to work, guess what? They'll work. And the economy of the United Kingdom will flourish.
Yeah.
And the Exchequer's revenue will go up. Contrary to the received wisdom that the Labour government have, cutting taxes will actually result in a much healthier finances for the government and a much healthier economy, which is what would give rise to that. They don't understand what's required. They should be removed from office. And, we can go on and on about this, but it's also a testimony to the incredibly low calibre of parliamentarian we now have. We have a front bench in the Labour government which simply hasn't got a clue about how the world works.
No.
Again, as you said in your opening comments.
It is absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? And I mean, as far as their main kind of policies go, one of them they bang on about because of that ridiculous, ludicrous summit Le Summit, as we called it here, between Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer. You know, they seem to think that finding some form of middle ground and finding an agreement on stopping the migrants is going to stop them. Well, it isn't. You know, they've now got the idea, Yvette Cooper has, that they're going to send some people back to Iraq. You know, I'll believe it when I see it. Nothing of that they do works.
No one is going to go back to Iraq, because even if they have a returns deal, the European Convention of Human Rights in its court will interfere and prevent that deal from being enacted. I often hear people say Pakistani rapists and who've raped underage British girls should be returned to Pakistan, and if Pakistan doesn't take them, Pakistan should be levied with sanctions. Yeah. Well, I totally understand the sentiment, but there is, in fact, already a Pakistan prisoner transfer treaty between the United Kingdom and Pakistan. It's been in place since 2018. It hasn't been invoked once by the British government because the European Convention of Human Rights would prohibit it from being able to use the treaty. Yeah. Having a treaty which is defeated by laws that you've put into your own statute book is an absurdity. It is deflection. It is performative politics. The deal with Iraq will do nothing. And that one-in, one-out deal is a complete lie from Keir Starmer. It's not one in, one out. That gives the impression that actually no one's coming to the UK. One in, one minus one is zero. Actually, it's one in, or one out, sorry, it's one in, one out, sorry, two in. I'll get that right. No, it's one out, two in.
It's one out. It looks like one out and about 17 in at the moment, isn't it?
At the moment, yeah. But it's going to. But the deal that they've done, even if it works, is one out, two in. It's the legalisation of illegal migration. Yeah. That's what Starmer's doing. And then once he's legalised it in that way, he'll be able to report that the numbers are down. Oh, we returned so many to France, and therefore this policy is working. But the reality is he's going to swap them with other migrants who shouldn't be in the country and thereby legalise the whole thing. It's all about performance. It's not actually about substance. And the deal with Iraq is just about performance as well. The deal that they did with Pakistan in 2018 is another performative treaty. What we've got to do is start governing the United Kingdom with the national interest in heart. And that comes at heart. And that comes with first ditching the supranational order, international laws, and the quangos in the United Kingdom, which prohibit us from doing that. That's the revision that we need if we want to talk about the migration crisis and other things that are similar to that.
Yeah, it is absolutely extraordinary just how bad it's got in just over a year. Incredible stuff. Since we last spoke, Ben, you've formed Advance UK. How's that going?
It's going very well, actually. I was looking at our numbers. Within 2 weeks, it was 2 weeks ago today that we launched, and I set ourselves a target of 30,000 members. Within 2 weeks, we've got very nearly 9,000 members, and we've got 12,000 supporters and donors. We've raised £125,000. And that makes us the 7th or 8th largest party in the United Kingdom within a 2-week period. So I'm really pleased. I think there's a real desire for serious principled politics that will put the nation state of the United Kingdom first, put freedom of speech, democracy, and equality before the law first. Those are our central principles, and we're going to be absolutely unbending in those principles.
OK, good to see you back. Ben Habib, thank you very much indeed. Leader of Advance UK, brand new party. We'll be talking more about them, I'm sure, as time goes on. Let's get a voice note from Phil.
Good morning, Mike. Phil from Nottingham. Ardie Alexander, £25 million, give to councils to dig gullies in your pavements. Well, knowing how stupid and inefficient some of our councils are, that should sort out about 25 electric car chargers at home, I would have thought.
Yes. Should we have a look at what Heidi Alexander thinks this is going to do and how it's going to work?
We're making £25 million available to councils so that they can provide financial support to households who want to put in a cross-pavement gully so that you can safely run the cable across the pavement.
A cross-pavement gully. I'd like to hear from some electricians about this. What do you do when you put in a cross-pavement gully, which then attaches itself to an electric car charger, which presumably is static, so only you can use it, because we don't know really who's paying for it. Is it connected to your house electricity bill? Is it separate for that? Do you pay for it with a credit card? You know, there are so many questions that she obviously doesn't even know the answer to, and neither do I. Maybe you do. 21 minutes past 7.
Keir Starmer has tweeted this morning, people are right to be angry when they see others disrespecting our laws. Now, those who try to make the crossing illegally will soon find themselves back where they started. That is a real deterrent. What do you make about what the Prime Minister says?
Well, I'm afraid it's not going to be a real deterrent, even if the European Union agree the deal, because under the arrangement that was proposed last week, only 6% of illegal immigrants crossing the Channel will wind up back in France.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:24. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock. Coming up, Kinsey Schofield's going to be here with us, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. She's got plenty to say about the latest ramifications from the old King Charles and Harry scenario. Front page of The Sun this morning. Let's get another voice note from Russ.
Morning, Mike. Russ from Hertfordshire here. I don't think they've really thought about this, have they? Because we're all overpopulated, you're lucky if you can park outside your own house. So if you have to park down the road, how do you charge your car? Cheers, mate. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
It's a perfectly reasonable question. This from Tony. Curbside charging installed at a cost of the taxpayer, saving £1,500 per annum. I wonder which MP's mates will get the contracts. Heidi? P.S. We need a brown envelope emoji. I know, I think you do. I mean, who's going to do all this work? I mean, if you're already under the cosh in terms of, you know, trying to drive around your neighbourhood with all the roadworks that are going on, there's going to be even more now roadworks. Absolutely ridiculous. Totally mad. Let's talk to Kinsey Schofield instead. Far more sensible woman than anybody that's ever been in this government. Front page of The Sun this morning, Kinsey. Very good morning to you. Time to clear the air, papa, he says. What's going on?
Well, first of all, I have to mention to you, I see you this week. I need a bumper sticker, Mike Graham. I know that this isn't breaking news, but I need a Mike Graham bumper sticker.
Okay.
So don't let me forget that when I see you.
Yeah, I will find one for you. They've been in very high demand, and I'm not sure there's any left, but I'm going to find one just for you and keep it for you till the next time I see you.
Thank you. All right, so this is breaking news. This is really big news. The Sun has reported that Prince Harry could potentially be coming to meet with King Charles within the next few weeks. But the Telegraph over the weekend also, we have to acknowledge the Daily Mail that breaks the story that there have been these peace talks between Prince Harry's team and King Charles's team. The Telegraph going as far as reporting that Prince Harry is now upset that those details are out in the open and wants to ensure that everyone knows that his camp, they did not leak these peace talks. There's a little bit of irony in Harry being angry over anyone leaking anything after the last few years. But it's really the closest we've come in the last few years to any sort of reconciliation between Prince Harry and his father.
Yes, it is an extraordinary meeting as well, because there's so many questions around it, aren't there? Because I had Rafe Heidelmann-Q in here earlier, who knows the club in question, and I know it, I've actually been there, and it's not a place that you would genuinely stand outside and look to take pictures of people in, because there's not normally anybody in there worth taking a picture of, apart from the time, obviously, when I was there. But, you know, it seems to me that somebody wanted this picture out there. Tobin Andre, interestingly enough, I don't know if you heard me say this earlier, the Director of Communications for the King, is a guy that I actually used to work for. He used to be a journalist when I worked for the Daily Express, and he later went to work for the Daily Mail. And he's very posh, he's an old Etonian, and he left the business of journalism. So he's got plenty of knowledge of people, shall we say, at the Daily Mail. I'm not saying he's leaked it, but, you know, there's any number of reasons how this meeting could have been held anywhere where nobody would have seen them.
You're absolutely right. And there are plenty of theories as to what was going on here. Is there a sense of urgency because of the King's health? Is one of the theories that has been tossed around online. The King just wants to say, you know, I just want to forgive and forget because you're my boy. Could this have all been a setup to test Harry and Meghan on their trustworthiness. That is another theory that's being floated around. But here's mine. I wonder if, and I know you know this person, so I'm certainly not hinting that it could be them, but could the palace in general have leaked the story to generate public reaction so they can claim that an effort was made, but the reaction was too negative to explore it further? There were over 4,000 comments on that an original Daily Mail story, and people were livid at the idea that the royal family would welcome Harry and Meghan back into the fold. So potentially, would they be open to leaking it so they could go, look, we made the effort. You've seen we've made the effort, but reaction was negative, so we're not going to pursue this.
Oh, I'm sure. The other theory that's been promulgated to me is that William found out about it because his people weren't in on it and weren't invited. He leaked it.
That's I mean, I think that might be my favorite theory of them all.
Well, you never know, do you? And interestingly enough, I mean, Matt Wilkinson, writing in The Sun today, says, you know, is it also possible that if this was something that was asked for by Harry's people, that they're, by deliberately not inviting any of William's people, does that try to then put some kind of wedge between the king and William?
I mean, that's a question that's... if there is any tension between the king and Prince William, and there are reports that occasionally that there are tension between the king and Prince William, I believe that it is over Prince Harry.
Yeah.
And the king wanting to have some sort of relationship with him, and Prince William realizing that Harry and Meghan are a liability to the royal family, and that it could not only jeopardize the king's legacy, but Prince William's as well. Based on Harry and Meghan's actions over the last few years. I also think we're missing the biggest theory of them all, which is Harry and Meghan are running out of money.
Yeah.
Harry and Meghan are desperate, and their proximity to the royal family has really been so financially beneficial to them since they stepped down as working members of the royal family.
Yes, exactly right. And I mean, they can't go on forever just kind of turning up at places and accepting awards for things they haven't really done, or reading more stories about, you know, the con job that is the Meghan Markle tea, or the Meghan Markle jam, or, you know, the Meghan Markle whatever else it is that's made somewhere else in Illinois, you know, by some sort of factory workers and selling it as something really, really special. You know, the gig is up, I think, is what we would say.
And to your point, Fergie never made a lifelong successfully. Fergie would have like a little bit of a hit here as a Weight Watchers spokesperson, right, and then she would be a QVC salesperson selling at Blenders at 3 o'clock in the morning. Fergie right. would do a cookbook. The longevity when it came to Fergie's commercial pursuits, which we are watching Meghan follow, you know, step by step in this on the same path. There was no longevity to it. That's why she lives with her ex-husband, right. You know. Otherwise, Fergie could have her own lifestyle and her own home. And so I think you're exactly right. Meghan Markle's going to struggle to maintain these multiple commercial ventures with her lack of authenticity and with the lack of quality control. I mean, loose fruit spread is not how I would want my fruit spread described in the Daily Mail.
No. Absolutely right. Just off the subject, but still on the subject, I guess, a little bit of the royal connection. Donald Trump's second state visit to the UK being kind of planned at the moment. We're told it could happen in the next few weeks. They're going to try and do it in a way which everybody's happy with, which means it's going to be, you know, difficult. For example, he's not going to get a state speech in Parliament, but they're going to try and make sure that when he comes, Parliament's not actually open, so it doesn't seem like he's been snubbed.
Well, I mean, there was quite, was there a giant man-baby balloon? Is that
there was, yeah.
Correctly?
Yeah.
The last time he visited? Yeah. Trump absolutely adores the British royal family. He will eat every second of this up. I do think that he's going to make the best of this visit and milk all those photos of him and the king, who he absolutely adores. But you do have to handle a trip like this carefully, because he is, and I'm not being critical here, but he's a very polarizing figure.
Yeah, he is.
So it's a dance.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a nightmare, I'm sure, for Keir Starmer, because Keir Starmer's on record as saying he wouldn't have him for dinner. And here he is having him for dinner.
Yeah, I mean, it's the government that asked the king to invite him out. So yes, inviting him for dinner and drinks and perhaps a spin around the dance floor.
Yeah.
That he's kissing up to Trump because Trump has a lot of power and can make his life more difficult.
Yeah, and he holds all the cards, in the words of Mr. Donald Trump himself. Great to talk to you, Kinsey. Thank you very much indeed. Kinsey Schofield, I'll get that bumper sticker for you, I promise. Host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. She's got some fascinating theories on what's going on behind the scenes in Buckingham Palace. Let's get a voice note from Joe.
Mike, we're going to get one of them electric cars. We applied to get a socket in front of the house. A bloke came out, measured up, looked at some plans, and then discovered there wasn't enough capacity in the existing cabling on the streets to actually let us have one. And they came back and wanted to charge us 35,000 quid to run new cabling up the street and pay for traffic management so they could close the road off and dig it all up and put traffic lights on it. It's ridiculous, mate.
You're joking. John, I can't believe that. 35 grand they wanted, right? What to do? Yeah, we're going to put some cabling up the street. We're going to give you a free charger, but that'll cost you 35 grand. And then after that, you can start making savings on your electricity. I mean, it doesn't beg a belief, this, does it? This is one from Adrian. He says, Mike, several years ago in Oxford, I saw those electric car cable channels the Transport Minister was talking about. It was for my customer's neighbour's house. It's a metal channel cut into the footpath and finishes level with the footpath, and it runs from the house to the street. The cable goes in the channel so it doesn't cause a trip hazard. My customer told me the council paid for it and the charger. What? What is going on here? You know, I mean, so this is literally just a vanity project so that you can put a cable into the street so that nobody trips over it, as opposed to sometimes what you see is, you know, somebody's put one of those smart cars up, or those whiz cars, and they've literally got it plugged into next to the TV. And there's a great big cable that goes over the garden wall and in through the front window, which you then can't lock, so you get burgled. Brilliant. 7:35.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:37. I'm Mike Graham, and this, of course, is Morning Glory. Mike, have a great day, says Damon in Wigan. On the subject of electric cars, once again, there is no idea about how any of this will work in the United Kingdom and who's paying for it. Why the hell can't they see what truly is going on in everyday lives and help the British people? Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Hi, Mike. Every clip I see of Starmer is him talking about how much of our money he's going to spend on some useless project. Is there one clip anywhere of him talking about saving money? Just wondering. fixing the foundations. Well, he did talk about saving a load of welfare money, didn't he? And then that didn't happen because the backbenchers wouldn't allow him to do it. So I'm afraid. I think we've got pictures of a pavement gully we can show you. So there we are. So it's not a trip hazard, but basically you run a cable into what I would call a trough. So you basically make a trough which the cable can run under. It's not completely closed in, so presumably that means it can get wet. And, obviously the cable would be insulated from the wet. But over time, I don't know what that would do to it. If you've got a gully which is full of water continually, because you live in Britain, and where is it connected to? Does it connect to your house mains? Does it connect through a plug in the wall? Does it then connect to the charge point which is on the pavement? At which point that takes up space on the pavement? It's all so unclear, but this is what Heidi Alexander wants to spend, £28 million on, right? So that you can have an electric car charge point for your electric car, except you won't be able to park it there. So I'm not sure this is the great idea they think it is. I mean, I don't see the charger there, unless there's is it coming out of the ground and you're going to just plug it into the car? I don't know. So unclear, isn't it? Very unclear. And what if you run over it by accident? There you go. Oh, cobblers, I can't charge the car, I've just run over the plug. Anyway, let's talk to Lucy White, public policy specialist, because there are far more interesting things going on. Not much more interesting than electric cars, I must say. But yeah, Britain's on the verge of signing a terms deal with Iraq, apparently, to thwart the small boats crisis. That's what the headline says. I would say the chances of that happening, 0 to about 0, I would say. Lucy, very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I keep waiting for the small boats to stop coming because I keep hearing that this migrant deal with France is going to stop the boats. It's going to be a real deterrent, says Keir Starmer, and they're just going to stop coming suddenly one day. But I don't know when that is.
Yeah, absolutely no time under this government. I think the earliest hope we have is until a new government comes in. But if we have to wait until 2029 for that, we have no hope, Mike.
No, because there's literally nothing in any agreement with the French that I've seen which will convince anybody anything other than to come in even greater numbers.
No, exactly. And if you look at these statistics, we currently have, on average, 850 illegal migrants arriving every single week. But this deal would only send back, if it actually comes into manifestation, it would only send back 50 illegal migrants a week. So we would still be having 850 illegal migrants arriving, and only 50 of those would be leaving. So the 800 is Keir Starmer suggesting that they would also just be shipped off to 4-star hotels?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, he was saying all over the weekend, that he speaks in the present tense about something that isn't happening. He said, if you come to this country illegally, we will detain you and then deport you. But it's like as if it started now, but it hasn't started now, has it?
No, it absolutely has not started now. I think the only good thing is that we're starting to see common sense move, not just from the sort of the right-wing narrative, but more into the centre.
Yeah.
And if you look at The Economist, the newspaper, they just published an article saying that the asylum system needs to be scrapped, which is actually quite astounding because The Economist is typically more of a left-wing leaning journal. So the fact that we've got the attention now, The Economist, plus the Labour Prime Minister Keir Starmer, it does show you that all this sort of pressure that people are putting onto him is working. And yes, while Starmer does talk about a deal with Macron, it seems to be more for his public image because he knows he's not doing well in the polling. I think he's saying what we want to hear, but he needs to understand that a deal with the French is hardly what we want to hear anyway. It's also a Brexit betrayal, sort of going back to Macron, and it seems to be more on the French president's terms than on our terms.
Yeah, exactly right. And what about this Iraqi deal that Vivek Cooper's been talking about? But again, very few specifics, very little information as to how it would work or who would be eligible for the return. Because an awful lot of asylum seekers who have failed in this country are still here because they're appealing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think any sort of deal with a third country that is not going to be, say, a typically developed country such as within Europe, I think there's always going to be criticism. We saw that with Rwanda, will face calls to say that Iraq is, this will not be able to be possible.
Yeah.
Then you have the ECHR and human rights lawyers that will always intervene. You even have Lord Hermer himself, the #1 chief villain of the United Kingdom. I'm sure he will step in and deter that. But the other issue, Mike, I have with the asylum system is, again, if you look at the statistics, 2/3 of all asylum seeker applications have been approved and granted, and only 1/3 rejected, which is quite terrifying to think that of all these illegal migrants who enter, which is approximately 44,000 a year, to have 2/3 of those approved, where are they going to be living in this country? I don't think we have capacity. And even if we did have capacity, local communities do not want it, taxpayers do not want it. And this is why you have scenes such as the effigy that was burnt of the illegal migrants sat on top of the bonfire tower, because people have had enough. They feel that the government is not listening, and people are now going to extreme measures to get the attention of the government to do something.
Yeah, they really are, because everybody now sees what the effect of all of this is on Britain. Everybody can see that, it's had a radically, definitively negative effect on everything that happens in this country. And you see these pictures of people clambering onto dinghies and coming here. And it just makes you think, when you see those images, well, where are these people ending up? Where are they all going?
Exactly, where are they all going? But also, where are they coming from? We had a case... there's an ongoing case, actually, so I can't report on that, but just in terms of the reaction to it of in Epping, in Essex. Yeah. One of the illegal migrants at Bell Hotel, he has been accused of, sexual assault towards a young girl. Yeah. And I don't know the outcome of that case, as I say, as it's ongoing. But the issue is he arrived, and within 8 days of arriving in the UK, he's allegedly committed a crime already. And you just think, why on earth?
Well, there's lots of those cases as well. I mean, we've already now got statistics, haven't we? And as you say, we can't go into any individual cases that might be live at the moment, but we certainly know from the statistics that we've got, the people who are coming here on these small boats are more likely, certainly from certain countries, whether it be, I think, Afghanistan and Iran, much more likely to commit sexual offences in this country than people who are already here.
Yep, absolutely. We are looking at approximately 1 in 4 sexual assaults are committed by foreign nationals. Yeah. And of course, the point to reiterate is 1 in 4 men in the United Kingdom are not foreign nationals.
No, exactly.
And those 1 in 4, it just shows the proportion of foreign nationals committing these crimes is just unbelievably high when you take a per capita stance.
Yeah, exactly right. So, I mean, in terms of this whole business of what the government says and what the government actually does, in terms of when people are actually technically going to be detained, and I mean by detained, not put in a hotel, not put on a coach, not taken to a football match, that's not being detained. Being detained, as like Greece is doing, building a detention centre on Crete and putting people in it as soon as they land on Greek shores. That's what we should be doing, surely, and that's what Starmer is telling us he's doing, but he's not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that just makes complete sense. I've been saying this at least since the last 2 years on, on TV interviews, etc., that as soon as they land on British soil, they should be detained right there and then deported as quickly as possible. Within 2 weeks, they should, once they land illegally on our soil, within 2 weeks, they should be detained and moved on. We need to have faster processing systems, and we need to be building some sort of detention centre at their point of entry. And what's also interesting, I speak a lot about this just within my circles or to the public. People are saying the focus is always on the port of entry at Dover, but of course we are an island. There are many points of entry into the UK that often are overlooked, or illegal migrants haven't even been counted. So there could be many cases where they are coming into our country from different points of entry and simply not being counted. So the figure I just gave you of approximately 850 illegal migrants on average, in reality, that could be a lot higher, Mike, and that is alarming. And the main reason as to why I would always advocate that we need detention centres at the point of entry is because once they enter communities and neighbourhoods, they destabilise those entire communities and neighbourhoods.
and they disappear and you never see them again. You know, I mean, we spoke to a guy just the other week who was a long-distance lorry driver up in Cambridge who said he just parked up in a service stop and the guy's lorry in front of him opened up and 4 guys jumped out the back of it and ran into the woods. You know, so you don't even know where they're coming from and nobody's checking it. But extraordinary stuff. Lucy, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Lucy White there, public policy specialist. Let's get a voice note from Diane on these gullies in pavements.
Hi, Mike. It's Diane in Southend. I love the idea of these cross-pavement gullies. I walk to work. Am I going to be hopping and skipping and jumping over all these gullies across the pavement? Sounds really lovely first thing in the morning. Can't wait. Thanks, bye.
Yeah, it's not clear how they work. I'm sure somebody can explain. But they're obviously in the same level as the pavement, so it shouldn't be a trip hazard, I guess. But I don't know I don't know what happens at the other end. Is there a plug? You know, do you put it into? Where's the charge point? I just can't really see it. Do you plug that into? Do you have to then install a charge point in which that plug goes in? I don't know. It's all very strange. Morning, Mike, says Nikki. Love your show. My alarm went off at 5:50 a.m. I will work all day and all week despite having a medical condition. Anyway, are my hard-earned taxes going to be raised to pay for the electric car cables rollout that Heidi Alexander announced? I thought everything had been fully costed before the government came in. It's this utter waste of public money that makes me want to leave the country, but I can't afford to because I'm being taxed too much. Nick in Kent. Absolutely right. My neighbour, says Dave in South London, has 5 family cars parked in the road. How would they manage to charge them all? Well, very good question. Well, they wouldn't, would they? This is Talk.
Aides representing the royal households of the King and Prince Harry have been having a little chit-chat, possibly about how to heal the rift. Charlotte joins us now. What is going on?
Well, aides for Prince Harry, 2 of them, one of them Meredith Maines, who is Meghan and Harry's right-hand woman in Montecito, flew over, met with this other guy called Liam Maguire, who's their kind of UK sort of head of comms, and they went and had a very secret clandestine meeting in St James's with Tobin Andre.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. 7:51. So many questions this morning about these gullies, right? Let's hear from Heidi Alexander. This is the Secretary of State for Transport on what she wants to do to your pavement outside your house.
We're making £25 million available to councils so that they can provide financial support to households who want to put in a cross-pavement gully so that you can safely run the cable across the pavement.
Yeah, but you safely run the pavement, the cable across the pavement to where? And what's at the end of the cable? Because if that's where you plug in your car, what happens? What happens to the plug? The plug doesn't go in the gully because it's too big. The plug goes in the car, But does it detach? I mean, can you apply? Can you just, you know, put the plug on the end of the cable? I just don't. There's so many questions. I don't know how any of this is going to work. And you're just going to have a load of gullies in the street, which we're paying for people with electric cars that they can't park there because there's somebody else in the space. I don't know. This just seems completely insane, this policy, doesn't it? We'll be announcing the winner of the Oasis competition we had later on in the show, by the way. And remember, if you've got a story that's affected you or your family and you think we should know about it or investigate further, you just email us at tips@talk.tv. So many of you have done it already. We're working on a whole bunch of really, really interesting stories that you've told us about. So email us at tips@talk.tv and that will get us and our teams working on what it is that's going on in your world. Let's talk to Jake Wallace-Simons now, the author of Israelophobia, the newest version of The Oldest Hatred and What to Do About It. A couple of stories really today to talk to about. Anti-Semitism normalised in middle-class Britain. More than 70 Palestine Action supporters arrested over the weekend. And a story on the front page of The Telegraph, which is sort of related. BBC's losing the public trust over a string of failures. I think that's probably old news. I think lost public trust would be more accurate. Jake, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Palestine Action don't seem to be stopping their action, despite the fact that they've been prescribed as a terrorist organisation. Are they just taking the mickey now out of the government?
I think they are, to be honest. I mean, it just goes to show how many idiots are supporting this this now terrorist organisation. They're all coming out the woodwork and taking to the streets, and you're seeing the pictures now on the screen of the police carting them all away and dealing with them in what appears to be a fairly an unexpectedly robust manner, if you don't mind me saying so. And I think that it's really got to continue like this, because once you make a law that something's a terrorist organisation, even if you don't agree with it, you've still got to obey the law. Right. That's how society works. I can't pick and choose the laws that I obey and the laws that I disregard. And if the police buckles on this and allows them to get away with it, then every other terrorist group that is proscribed, that also enjoys support in this country, such as Hamas, Hezbollah, and even Islamic State, we're going to see lots of support for them as well. So we can't go down that route.
No, indeed. And presumably the people who are then arrested are going to be treated under the Terrorism Act, are they?
I suppose they are. I mean, it's all very bizarre, really. It goes to show the limits of the law, because the problem is that with an actual terrorist group that kills people, it's one thing. You can see how the law is made and enforced. But this really is very much on the borderline. It's not like Palestine Action's plotting to blow up the tube. They're plotting to do, in some cases, sabotage of RAF bases, which, of course, is very serious. But it feels to the public, I think, in a way, in a different sort of category. But the government has used this terrorist legislation because they really want to throw the book at them, with totally understandably, and yet it's enraging people on the loony left who feel it's very, very unfair. And so the government's really got itself into a bit of a mess here, I think. Yeah, I think they have, because they've sort of taken bad advice. They've took too long to do it, and they've not, for a government full of lawyers, they don't seem to know the law very well. Yeah, that's right. And it's also a case of mixed messages, because on the one hand, you can go on the streets and protest for Palestine and in some cases get very close to breaking the law or even break the law, and the police will do very little. In fact, there's been cases where the police have arrested counter-protesters, people who've raised Israeli flags perfectly lawfully, or raised a sign saying Hezbollah is a terrorist organisation, again, perfectly lawfully, but they've been arrested. Apparently for their own safety. So the message to Palestine demonstrators is, take to the streets, do what you like, and we'll arrest anybody who seeks to get in your way for their own safety. Right. And yet here, the police are clamping down. So I think there's been mixed messages, which really doesn't help the clarity with regard to the law and these people. No, it doesn't. And of course, it also feeds into the other story we mentioned, which is anti-Semitism has been normalised in middle-class Britain, according to a government-backed report, which is a terrible state of affairs for any right-thinking individual, isn't it? It is, and the two-tier policing, as it's known, is part of this report. I mean, this report is quite interesting in that it scans through all different sectors of society and shows how anti-Semitism is really endemic in so many of them. It mentions in particular the NHS, which, you know, if you're Jewish and unwell and vulnerable and maybe elderly and going into hospital, the last thing you want to be worried about is if you're going to be discriminated against by people wearing Palestine badges. You know, universities, again, if you're a student going to university to study biochemistry, for example, or engineering or medicine or English, the last thing you want to be thinking about is whether you're going to be bullied, have bacon taped to your door, as happened in one case, or to be prevented from entering the library by a fake checkpoint, or accused of being a genocide supporter. And also, of course, it's endemic across the arts. Jewish artists and musicians and actors are finding it difficult to get work. They're being discriminated against. All of this stuff is anathema to Britain. We shouldn't be saying this. It's almost a surreal experience saying these words to you. But after October the 7th, this grotesque attack against the Jews has somehow sparked more animosity towards the Jews ever since, even from October the 8th. Right. And I think really what it feels like to me is that anti-Semitism is not in itself an isolated problem. It's a symptom of a greater sickness in society. And that sickness is that we've forgotten what makes us Britain. We've forgotten the sense of community and rights and wrongs and the social standards that we naturally used to enforce, that some things just weren't acceptable. And in its place has been this rise of radicalism, progressive radicalism in particular, and Islamic radicalism, which have got together and grabbed the levers of many of our public institutions. And that really is a problem that we've made for ourselves by doing ourselves down for so many years, and the Jews are suffering the consequences. First of all.
Exactly right. And those who are behaving in this way profess to be only anti-Zionist, right? Which actually is not the result of it at all. The result of it is that Jewish people in Britain are intimidated by some of this stuff that goes on because they feel as if they're being targeted.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite transparently the case that the anti-Zionism or Zionism is just simply a code word. I mean, you can't, after the Holocaust, you can't say, I hate Jews, Jews out. Right. But you can say, this is a Zionist-free zone or city, as people say in Manchester and elsewhere. There's all sorts of different, very obvious codes that people use. And one of them, of course, is genocide, because, of course, you and I know there isn't any genocide in Gaza. If there was, Israel could have done it in about half an hour with the armaments that it has. There isn't a genocide, there's a war. There's a difference between the two things, whether or not you agree with the war. Yeah. But they're holding up, they and Palestine Action actually are holding up signs saying they're against the genocide as a cover, when what they're really against is against the West, frankly. I mean, if you're against...
And that's exactly what they keep saying. You're absolutely right. Jake, listen, we've got to run. We're up against the clock. Thank you very much indeed. Jake Wallace-Simons there, author of Israelophobia. Coming up next, we've got Steve Baker and the news. We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
Rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like someone out of Jurassic Park. Yeah. We were turning around saying, believe it, just put your foot down, Dad, we're in a field. Put your foot down, this rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet, and it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its two front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich, don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. As an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger, every springtime, the folk in this village need to use the old Aussie trick.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Electric vehicles, the big subject of the day today, because the government wants you to buy one. Heidi Alexander wants to spend £63 million of our money to basically subsidise people buying electric cars, people installing electric car driving charging points. People want to be convinced that they should get rid of their petrol car, their diesel car. But guess what? Heidi Alexander, herself the Secretary of State for Transport, I should say, doesn't even have her own electric car. Do you ever listen?
You would like all of us to buy more electric cars? I would. If I had an EV, I'd be asking myself questions about how I would get the electric cable across.
So you don't
to the
have
car.
one. So the Transport Secretary doesn't have an electric car, but you're telling everyone else to have one.
I don't have an electric car, Laura, but I'm a lot like, you know, millions of people in this country who I bought a new car about 6 years ago. I'm thinking about the next car that I will purchase, and it will definitely be an electric vehicle. I'm not in the habit of changing my car on a yearly basis, expensive as it is.
Tremendous. So she's going to get the next car she gets will be an electric car. That'd be all right. Maybe she can make use of the subsidy. Maybe I could help buy you an electric car, Heidi. You know, why don't you just tax me some more so that part of that money can go towards your purchasing of an electric car. And then maybe I could give you some more money so that you can put a gully in the street so you could run a cable through it so that you can plug the electric car in. Where, if you can, it will be sitting because, of course, you always get that space outside your own house, don't you? Let's get a voice note from Pete.
Where's all this money coming from all the time to do all these cables under the pavement in the people's houses? They keep claiming they've got no money. They've got no money, but all of a sudden they keep magicking up all this money for this, money for abroad, money for illegal immigrants, money for other people, when our own old age pensioners and our forces veterans and other people that are British are just getting turned away with nothing.
It's a good question. Where's the money coming from? Pete's right. This from Karen. This is the most crazy idea that's come from the government, and they have done a lot. They haven't got a clue how people live, how houses are laid out. People live in flats and maisonettes. People can't even park near their house. People have rows about parking. It's utter madness. Yeah, can you imagine? Why are you parking in my space? How do you know it's your space? And there's my cables coming out of my house. And then he takes a pair of scissors to it and chops it off. And then that's the end of your cable. And that's another few million quid you've spent. 5 minutes past 8. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Very good morning to you. This, of course, is the home of common sense. This is Talk. We're going to talk to Steve Baker now, former Conservative Government Minister. This government has no money, apparently. They're going to have to put taxes up, according to the front page of the Telegraph this morning. Taxes on the middle classes, by the looks of things, although it's not that clear who the middle classes are as far as the Labour government are concerned. But increased taxes for people on modest incomes, said Heidi Alexander yesterday. And she said that Labour would base its policy on fairness. Well, that would be a first. Let's find out from Steve what's going on. Steve, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks very much for having me on.
Not at all. Pleasure. We're focusing to a large extent this morning on what Heidi Alexander had to say yesterday about taxes. Obviously, the Labour government have run out of money. They don't know how they're going to tax us, but they just know that they are sometime in the autumn. But this whole kind of this madness about electric cars is kind of indicative for me of what's going wrong with the government. You know, they've got all these ideas that they think people should be changing their behaviour in one way, shape or form, and they're going to somehow use public money to get them to do it, except nobody's thought it through. I mean, you cannot possibly tell me that people who live in ordinary streets in this country, who park outside their house because they haven't got a driveway, you don't ever park in the same place. How can you have an electric charge point in one place and only you can use it?
Well, it's absolutely mad, Mike, isn't it? I mean, you and I both know perfectly well that most of your listeners will struggle to get a parking space. You know, how lovely it is for those of us who have got off-street parking. But for so many people, perhaps where they've got multiple cars in a house because the kids can't afford to get out and buy their own place,
right.
You know, it's a disaster to try and charge an electric car. I mean, the hypocrisy of the Transport Secretary is comical, but it's unfortunately very serious, because she's going to be wasting public money trying to get people to do impossible things. And, you know, you're absolutely right. There's a kind of dissonance where they don't understand how people live. They aren't thinking clearly about taxation. And I bet your listeners will know that if you're on £50,000-60,000 a year, you're squarely in the sights of Labour for tax rises, but you're not having a generous life. You're probably struggling to make ends meet if you've got a mortgage and kids.
Yeah, and it definitely looks as though they're going to be dragging an awful lot of people into higher tax brackets, because that's one of the things they can do while still keeping their promises not to do it, if you know what I mean.
Well, they won't get away with it, Mike, will they? I was just looking at the breakdown of tax. 32% of tax is paid by higher rate taxpayers. That's people on 50,000 to 125,000. Now, I wouldn't mind being back to earning about 125,000 a year, but I bet those people who are on, say, 50 to 80, you know, that is, if you're living in London or the South East, that is making it pretty tough to bring up two kids, pay the mortgage and have a family holiday. And I think those people will be very surprised to learn that they've got money to spare in this strange cause of fairness. And I think they'll be very alive to waste. They'll be very alive, as one of your callers said, to spending on illegal immigrants. They'll be very alive to waste going on to the energy system, driving up, not only waste in excess subsidies. Ed Miliband's bringing forward something today that's going to allow him to boost subsidies, but not only the waste on subsidy, but also driving up people's energy bills. It's a crazy way to go on.
Well, it is. And also, you know, surely you could learn a lesson from what it is that you have to do. If you have to subsidise things in order to make people want them, or in order to make people, you know, even be willing to consider them, then there's something wrong. You know, people don't buy electric cars because they're too expensive.
There's two ways to organise society, either the government's way, which is rule following and forcing people to do things, or the private citizens' way, which, whether people like it or not, is prices, profit and loss. And if you're making a loss, that's a sign that you should stop doing the things that you're doing. And instead the government comes along and subsidises things which would otherwise be loss-making in order to force them to happen. Now, this might sound a bit arcane, but it should be obvious. If you're losing money, don't subsidise it. Don't do it. Do something else which makes society better off. This is why we face ruin, because politicians are insisting on daft policies. What we should be doing is following a policy of gas to nuclear on energy and making sure we've got abundant, affordable electricity so that everybody can get on. Plentiful electricity is absolutely one of the foundations of our civilization and prosperity, and yet we're adopting policies which mean that when the sun isn't shining, when the wind isn't blowing, we'll face real shortages of power.
Right, and also with more and more data banks that they want to build, with more and more kind of, you know, shall we say, things that need electricity, you know, we're going to have much higher demand, so we should be producing more, not trying to worry about how it's produced.
Absolutely. So some of my commercial contacts are now telling me that some of the big power users, like IT companies with enormous data center demands, they're now thinking of having their own small modular nuclear reactors. Now, I could see why they would want to do that, and I certainly think we should have more small modular nuclear reactors. But I don't think that users should have to come up with their own ways of delivering reliable power. The fact they're even considering it is a sign that energy policy is dramatically failing. You know, it ought not to be the job of a data centre to run a nuclear power station, and, you know, they are seriously considering it. Labour should think again and go for gas to nuclear.
Yeah, because what that tells you is that the commercial operators believe that the national grid is not fit for purpose, and many people tell me that it's come close to falling over quite a few times this year.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, there's plenty of energy dashboards out there. If your listeners just search energy dashboard, they'll find plenty of evidence that very often wind doesn't produce anything like the power we need, and sometimes it produces nothing. Sometimes, if the wind's blowing too strongly, it produces too much power, and we actually, if you can believe it, we pay them not to feed that power in because it's not needed. It's so that the systems become irrational and illogical, and we're all paying the price.
Yes.
And I'm afraid it is very serious. This is why people might be screaming at the radio, why didn't you do something? Well, of course I did. I led the Cost of Net Zero campaign at some cost. But we were right. We were proven right. And I think over the years ahead, as we see with HSBC leaving that climate alliance, as American banks have done, we'll see that net zero is increasingly challenged. What politicians really should do is get on the side of the public and start adopting rational policies which drive energy bills down.
But what I read this morning in The Guardian, and I don't read The Guardian very often, I must say, Ed Miliband is to explicitly call out politicians who reject net zero policies for betraying future generations in an unprecedented update to Parliament about the state of the climate crisis that he is calling an exercise in radical truth-telling. He's become obsessed, hasn't he, old Ed Miliband?
Well, look, this is a great opportunity for the Conservative Party. Kemi's come out against net zero by 2050. She's basically taking the kind of line that I was taking, that yes, the climate's changing, yes, CO2 emitted by people has had some impact on it, but what really matters is what we do and making sure it's rational. So if Ed Miliband wants radical truth-telling, well, I would encourage fact-checkers to go and have a look at the Cost of Net Zero campaign run by Net Zero Watch. Have a look at what Andrew Montford says, the director of that project, because if we get some radical truth-telling about net zero, then current policy will very quickly collapse.
Yeah, I think so. We'll be talking to Andrew Montford actually later on in this hour, because there has been just a whole litany of ridiculous decisions made based on net zero. And no matter how much money this government says it doesn't have, they won't seemingly take any away from Ed Miliband and the net zero craziness.
Well, if you look at Labour MPs and what they're actually like, they just failed to vote for the relatively moderate adjustments to benefits. They're also completely addicted to this net zero craze.
Yeah.
And so asking them to vote for different policy is like, after all the promises they've made to their electors, that's likely to lead to another debacle in the House of Commons. And this is, I'm afraid, what happens when you get unserious politicians campaigning and failing to face up to the trade-offs that one has in life, and also actually failing to face up to evidence, and instead just going with groupthink, because I'm afraid that is what is afflicting us right now, really radical groupthink. If I may, if people can go out there to Our World in Data, have a look at how much China is emitting, have a look at how much China's emissions are increasing every year. Chinese annual increases in emissions are more than our total. If the UK went to zero, China's annual increase would surpass what we had done. We've got to start behaving rationally in the context that we have. So, yeah, let's take action. But what we need is more gas power plants to cover the intermittency of wind and solar, and use that as a transition to always-on, available, inexpensive nuclear.
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. And when you look at exactly how much money they're wasting on net zero and how little effect it's having, whenever I get anybody on who's an advocate of it, I always say, well, so what happens if you get to net zero? Nobody ever knows the answer to that, because nothing changes, basically. You walk out the door, the weather's the same, the river's the same height, the same number of animals running around in the street, nothing's changed.
Well, it's certainly the case that there's really, in context of Chinese emissions and where India's likely to be going, there is very little the UK can do to change the course of global emissions. I mean, our contribution is tiny, and for anyone denying that has not looked at the data. So we should be rational. It's one thing for us to aspire to emit less carbon. It's another for us to absolutely ruin ourselves doing it and pay the price for no benefit. And this kind of irrationality, it's mere politics, I'm afraid. I'm afraid terrifying the public gets votes, and too many politicians have been willing to terrify the public to get a vote, and then they have to follow through on their stupid policies. And I'm afraid it's unserious, and the best thing your listeners can do is punish these politicians by voting for the candidate who's most likely to offer them common sense.
Yeah. And finally, the front page of Daily Mail today, Labour's doctors strike hypocrisy. The workers' rights bill is going through even as we speak. We've got the the BMA talking about a strike for 5 days starting July 25th, which is apparently going to cost something in the region of about £64 million. It's a radical organisation being encouraged by almost the workers' rights bill. Soon they'll be able to strike without even having to have 50% of the ballot wanting to do so.
Well, it's back to the 1970s, isn't it? I'm just about old enough to remember the chaos that we had, child as I was at the time.
Yeah.
Certainly my parents' generation easily remember it.
Yeah.
But it took years to get sense into the trade union movement. But I mean, what next? Are we going back to closed shops? I mean, the bill that Labour have brought forward is a disaster. Andrew Griffith, the shadow business secretary, has been extremely good at pointing out its shortcomings. But now the Labour government has been once again caught in hypocrisy. They're criticising the manner in which the BMA has gone on strike, saying that not enough people voted for the strike to make it legitimate.
Right.
While on the other hand, as you say, doing away with the 50% turnout requirement. And again, if we could just ask, please, for some consistency in policy making, that would be a start in trying to improve it.
But this is the beginning, is it not, of a sort of summer of discontent, if you like, where it's going to be the train drivers next, it's then going to be the nurses, then it's going to be, you know, the other train workers, it's going to be, you know, other, you know, civil service unions. They're all going to have a go.
Well, I'm afraid so, yeah. I mean, the doctors demand, much as they might like, very much higher pay. It's not realistic in the context of who's paying for it. And again, talking about taxes, I mean, your median earning listeners are going to be hit quite hard, it seems, by Labour in order to pay these doctors these extra wages. It's a pity they can't start thinking of the people that they serve. They are well paid in excellent jobs with great prospects.
And very good pensions, by the way.
Yeah, and they've had a large pay rise, and you know, really they should be saying enough's enough. But on the wider point, yes, you know, I'm afraid Labour engage in daydreams about what is possible, and in particular on employment rights. They seem to have no idea what it's like to run a company. I employ 2 people, and I'm very pleased and proud to do so. I'm very pleased and proud of the quality of my employees. But thank goodness I know that there are people on the centre-right who broadly agree with me, and that means I don't have to worry too much about the enormous exposure to liabilities that employers will have under this new employment rights bill from Labour. It's really going to be prejudicial to the interests of the working people they purport to represent.
Yeah, it's absolute madness. Great to see you, Steve. Thank you very much indeed. Steve Baker, former Conservative Government Minister. Let's get a voice note from Laura on the gullies.
Morning, Mike. Laura here from Kent. They want to put a gully in and put an electric cable in the gully. Every time I've had to have electric cable put in, it has to be buried a minimum of 2 feet, 60 centimetres for the youngsters these days. So how can they put it in a gully and actually comply with the regulations? Bonkers. This world has gone bonkers, Mike. Have a good day. Bye.
Laura, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, interesting. So this apparently is not going to be buried, you know, a foot into the ground. This from Alan in Watford. I was at Brands Hatch the other week and they've had these gullies for years in the paddock so guys can hook their motorhomes up to power. I tried to use one, but the only problem was the gully was full of dirt and rubbish, so the cable wouldn't lay flat inside it, meaning I had to tie it down on the tarmac with tank tape. Just as well it wasn't raining. Well, there we are. I mean, that's the thing. And then Russ has very helpfully sent me a little picture to say this is how it works. The gully has bristles. One end plugs into the charger at the house or plug socket, the other into the car. The cable pushes into the gap. Some have bristles, some are locked in place. Have a good day. Yeah, but the problem is the picture you sent me, Russ, has got a yellow cable coming out into the street, but it doesn't show me what's on the end of that cable, which presumably is a great big plug, which goes into the car. And if you're going to leave that just dangling there, then it means anybody could run over it. It means anybody could nick it, presumably. It means anybody could snip it if they didn't like you, or they thought they just were against electric cars in some way, shape or form. You know, the whole thing seems to be very ill thought through. It looks like something you do on a temporary basis. Here's this from somebody who says, who's going to stop a person pulling the plug on the car while walking down the street? Well, people have done that in the past. Sarah in Peterborough says, morning, great show as always. These electric charging gullies will end up being the new copper and people will have the cables stolen or vandalised. The government hasn't got a clue. And Chris says, I can't understand this gully idea. They can only have a certain length lead. You can use extension leads as it would overheat. You can't use extension leads as it would overheat and set on fire. So you'd have to have a charging unit on the road. It's all a load of old cobblers. Listen, I'm not an engineer, as I've often said on this show, but this doesn't sound right to me. You've got a cable coming out of your house, running into a gully, which is going to get covered in all sorts of grime and crap and leaves and nastiness, and you're going to get rainwater running into it every single time it rains, which is not going to be great for the corrosive scenario. And then at the end of the thing, you've got a plug that sits in the road, which gets wet, or maybe is covered in some way, but it's still a lump of some kind. Where do you put the lump which plugs into your car, if you can find the space to put your car there? It's mad. It's totally insane. I'm sorry. 21 minutes past 8.
Unite's a huge Labour backer. They were usually, historically, their biggest funder. A huge backer of Angela, personally, the Deputy PM. They've given loads of money to her personal campaigns to be re-elected. But these besties have broken up, it looks like. They say they've chucked Angela Rayner out of the union. Angela says, I dumped you first, I'd already left. That's a bit of a row. But the bigger picture is that Unite are threatening to disaffiliate from the Labour Party, which will be a huge breach between Labour and their historic backers of the union.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:25. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course, when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. Let's get a voice note from Michael.
Morning, Mike. Charging gullies. They're designed just to hold a cable. You'll have to have a proper charger installed right outside your house, or you'll have to run an extension lead from inside your house through the gully to the car. There seems to be an assumption that when you get home, you can park directly outside your house and run your charging cable through this gully to your car. As you don't own the road outside your house, imagine how you will feel when you are down to the last 1% and there's a diesel van parked right outside your house across your gully.
Yeah. Or the neighbours put a skip down there, all right? And that's going to stick there for 3 months while they renovate the second part of the loft redesign. You know, stuff like that happens. Let's talk to Harry Cole, editor-at-large, of course, of The Sun newspaper. He's written his final column from the UK today as he goes off on a new adventure to the United States of America. Harry, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are we doing?
I'm very well indeed. Farewell, O land of nope and gory. I like that. I was saying to somebody that it could have been dope and gory, some of the smells that you get walking around London these days. But you make the point, you'd like to have written a really nice positive piece about, you know, what you're leaving behind in Britain. But there's not an awful lot of positivity out there, is there?
Yeah, I can't say I'm the only one leaving these shores at the moment. And I'm
You need an assistant.
I'm going for work, yes, but I'm not going because, you know, for over-taxation, over-regulation, lack of entrepreneurship in this country that seems to be festering at the moment. But thousands of people are. There was some, you know, fascinating stats out the other week about the number of the number of actual very, very, very rich people that are leaving. You know, we're going to lose more millionaires than, you know, even communist China this year, as people flock to America, they flock to the Gulf. But if you drill down to the stats, as I've done a little bit, it's clearly not just, you know, the super rich that are going, but, you know, people that want to make a living, make a business, just don't seem to be wanting to stay in Britain. Don't feel that this is a competitive environment to succeed in. 40,000 people alone moved to Dubai last year, on top of the 30,000 that moved the year before. Those are 2024 numbers. I would hate to think what 2025 numbers are going to be like, and that's just one country alone. Yeah, it's a place where people are, you know, very popular and fashionable at the moment to go. It's obviously got incredibly competitive taxes. Tax regime, but you know these are warning signs warning signs for a country. You know, people can sneer and say good riddance and question their patriotism and the like. But, you know, find me a logical argument that says we should be losing tens of thousands of our best and brightest people at the same time as we're importing 1,000 illegal migrants a week to work on Deliveroo bikes and fund our black market.
Well, that's the problem. And I think the other thing is that people, as you say, the numbers will probably be even bigger this year, have got a sense that it's going to get a lot worse. And judging by some of the stories about tax this morning, it is going to get a lot worse before the end of the year.
Well, it is going to get a lot worse, not least because, you know, high earners are leaving, and 29% of all taxes are paid for by the top 10% of people.
Yeah.
So there is going to be an even bigger black hole for the Chancellor to fill, at the same time as, you know, any thought of trying to borrow any more money to fill the black hole is going to cause anguish and pain, and we're already $2 trillion in debt. That is incredibly expensive to service now, only getting more expensive, far more expensive than when Liz Truss was, you know, the brief Liz Truss fandango. You know, government 30-year borrowing is now consistently higher than it was during that, what was then a crisis. But we don't see, you know, people screaming day in and day out about that. And, you know, as we saw at the weekend, Labour not denying that they're looking at a new wealth tax. So I wonder whether they're just going to make this worse. In trying to fill the black hole by soaking the rich, they're going to actually make the black hole even bigger because people are going to leave. It's a, you know, the word doom loop gets thrown around a lot, but yeah, I really do worry. I did try to write a positive piece. I did say I wanted to go on a high, but as I was trying to write it, I just sort of actually thought, you know, until our political class in this country wake up, get real, start being honest with people about the scale of the problems, the scale of the spending commitments that we're making over the next 20 years. I just don't think that, you know, we're going to be able to grip this problem in a way that's required.
Well, I mean, you know, we talk to so many people every morning, as you do, in the Sun, and I mean, the one that's winding them up this morning is this Heidi Alexander idea. They're going to put gullies in the streets. I mean, it's like so ridiculous that, you know, it doesn't even bear thinking about. It's sort of laughable comedy time if you actually ask people how it's going to work. They're actually going to pay government money, which is our money, public money, taxpayers' money, to put a gully outside your house so you can run an electric cable down so you can charge your electric car. They obviously haven't thought of the fact that most people who don't have off-street parking can't park in the same place every day. They just can't do it. So you'll have an electric charge point that you can't use.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is one of those classic thing, and this is the sort of thing that, you know, the government could, if they were honest about the realities of the world, just stop doing. So look at what Donald Trump did. He got rid of the electric vehicle mandates with a flick of a pen.
Right.
He's just done it. So look, virtue signalling government. It was the last one. This one's, you know, despite pressure, has kept it up. Only Rishi Sunak really was the most sceptical about the electric car vehicle targets. Look, we are, you know, for the point of feeling warm and cozy about ourselves and hitting net zero, we are basically rapidly forcing the transition to electric cars before the market is ready, before the country is ready. As you say, you know, leaving aside the basic logistics of it, the government aren't willing to fund enough enough electric charging points to meet their targets, and so people haven't come up with daft ideas like this. It's absolutely classic piece of lunacy that we find ourselves in. That we're trying to hit a target without putting the infrastructure in place to hit it for the sake of saying we're going to switch to electric 5 years earlier than the EU or 5 years earlier than. Why not just if you want to move to electric cars, fine, but do it in a reasonable and sensible time frame with the amount of infrastructure needed. Be honest that actually we're in no way ready to hit these targets, and just relax them. I don't understand what the point of for a needless virtue signaling, we're ending up ripping up pavements and telling people bury rubber cables on. It's insane.
It is insane. I'm glad you said that word, because that's the word I was using earlier. Have a look at this though, if you think that's insane. This is Rachel Reeves' offering over the weekend.
Five.
Yes.
Very good. Well done, everybody.
So she's giving £1.5 million to help people play chess, apparently. You can see how this came about, right? Some spad in a room said, I know, what do people like you for doing? Oh, yeah, you were a chess champion. You only even came 26th, but still. Let's do something with chess. I mean, it's idiotic, isn't it?
I think that's the definition of putting on a brave face, right? Yeah. After recent travails of the week. Look, I mean, she looks like she was playing 6 different games of chess at the same time there, which is kind of a pretty apt metaphor for the situation that Rachel Reeves finds herself in. I thought it was fantastic this morning to hear that as now a group of Labour MPs are suggesting very sensibly that the powers of the Office of Budget Responsibility should be tamed.
Yeah.
Labour were the ones that screamed bloody murder when Liz Truss made that suggestion. They're the ones that their first act in office is again a complete political stunt. I was very careful when I said that.
Yeah.
Managed to increase the powers of the Office of Budget Responsibility, and now they find themselves quite sensibly realising that they've outsourced economic spending and commitments and the ability the ability to move nimbly to try and resuscitate the economy to a quango stuff with left-wing academics. So it's an absolute classic situation for the Chancellor. She can smile all she wants and play chess, but in reality, she's in a total bind, somewhat of her own making. And I think that day out, she'll look fondly on that day out wherever she was playing chess over the weekend in the coming months, because it's going to be a lot worse than that.
It really is. And they had a meeting at Chequers, didn't they? That sort of away day on Friday, which I don't know whether it sort of came up with any great ideas. But there's going to have to be some kind of reshuffle going on, presumably, once Parliament goes into recess.
I think you'll have to wait for a reshuffle, because as we've discussed before, it's 50-50 whether the Chancellor gets through this year.
Yeah.
So I think if there is going to be a reshuffle, you don't want to do more than one. So I think until it's clear, until the economy, the economics become a bit clearer, and again going back to the loved OBR, until they have decreed what how much headroom the Chancellor has, how big black hole she's got to fill in the autumn is, what the state of the finances are, and whether she's going to have to, whether Keir Starmer's going to lean on her and Labour MPs are going to lean on her to rip up those fiscal rules that says she won't increase borrowing, or rip up the manifesto that says she won't increase income tax, VAT, national insurance, until it's clear that she'll try and spin a way out of it. But she said if she in a sign to the markets that see Rachel Reeves as actually actually a bit of restraint on the system, on the Labour system, until it's clear that she's in control. I don't think Starmer can reshuffle. So. And frankly, what's the point? Yes, there's a few duds in the cabinet, but moving them around isn't going to change the price of fish, I don't think.
No, probably not. Finally, you're off to America, as I said. Donald Trump's coming here for his second state visit. Yeah. You wrote this morning that the fact that he's going to be denied access to a parliamentary speech is political cowardice. Why are they doing it?
Oh, they're worried about the Gaza independents doing some anti-Israel protest, or some left-wing Labour MPs doing, they might not turn up. So what? Yeah. I bet you fill Westminster Hall with people that would love to see Donald Trump. Yeah. He has an absolute right to speak to our parliamentarians. He is the twice-elected leader of the free world, or the leader of our closest ally, and we don't have the cajones to let him speak to us. It's absurd, especially after we let that little twerp Macron, you know, rant and rave about Brexit, lecture us and hector us from Parliament. We afforded France the honour, but we won't afford it to America. I think it's absolutely pathetic.
It is. It's pathetic and quite shameful. Harry, listen, great to see you. I hope I see you before you go, but if not, I'm sure we'll talk soon. Harry Cole, off to the United States of America, the land of milk and honey, the land of the free, the home of the brave, all that sort of thing. Leaving this place behind. I nearly said a different word there for a moment. Let's get a voice note from Simon.
Morning, Mike. Simon in North Wales. Just a quick one on electric vehicles. I've just finally got rid of my electric vehicle, which I've had for 3 years as a company car, and yeah, it was painful. You know, you're talking at least an hour to charge your vehicle, and that's with one of the superchargers. So you charge it at home, it's 9 hours. You charge it at a supermarket, it's 4 or 5 hours, which, don't know about you, I don't have 4 or 5 hours to sit around and wait for my car to get fueled up so I can carry on my journey. So yeah, I'm absolutely so glad to see the back of it and be able just to put a little bit of fuel in my car within, what, a minute, and then just be on my way. So yeah, you know, there's so many issues. There's so many times that you travel somewhere, the chargers don't work, your home charger sometimes doesn't work, or it doesn't charge overnight, and then you're stuck in the morning, you can't get to work. So absolute good riddance to my things. So yeah, good luck with that, Heidi, and great show, Mike. Have a good day.
Simon, thank you very much indeed. Imagine if it was the other way round, right, and you were an electric car driver, because everybody was, and you were like, yeah, it takes me 9 hours to charge my car at home, and you know, when I go out it takes me 4 hours to charge it when I'm out, and you know, it's a real pain in the neck, and it's really expensive, and it's really heavy and all that. And then somebody went, don't worry, there's a brand new invention coming out. It's a new car, right? It's using a different kind of power. You get it in a petrol pump, and you go there and you pay money and you stick it in your car, and you're done in about 20 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. You filled your car up, you can go for 400 miles. People would bite your arm off, wouldn't they? Let's have a look at what they're saying in Sun Letters. And the subject today is ID cards are border farce. Kev from Nottinghamshire says this: so the government wants to reduce digital ID cards to make illegal immigration easier to spot. The UK Border Force can pick up hundreds a week. How much easier do they want it? It's true. There they are. They're on that dinghy over there. Oh, they're all illegal. One from Nigel in Essex, Romford. ID cards on migrants' mobiles is a stupid, costly idea by Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. UK taxpayers probably bought their phones as well. Exactly right. Yeah, it's all madness, isn't it? All absolute bleeding madness. Andrew Montford's coming next, though, the director of Net Zero Watch. We'll see what he has to say about these gullies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8 to 41. I'm Mike Graham. What happens when utilities need to dig these gullies up for repairs? And even worse, when the village idiot pours corrosive liquid into them, you just know it's going to happen, says Steve. I know. Chris says these electric cables are a joke. What about terraced houses with no garden or high-rise buildings or other flats? I've never parked outside my house, which is a terraced one. This is all a massive waste of money. My petrol car is fine, thank you, says Chris. I know. Absolute madness. How about a voice note from Liam?
Morning, Mike. Liam from Kent. I'd like to see him do the old gullies down Miles Street. I live down a dead-end road, which is very narrow. You can't even get a van down it. So how are they going to manage this one? And do you know what? After being in the mechanics trade for 10 years, my genuine advice to everyone is stick with your combustion engine cars. I've got a 3-litre diesel Audi. I've had it a long time, and I shall continue to keep it for a long time, because it's vastly better for the environment than it is owning an electric vehicle. Cheers, Mike. Have a great show.
Well done, Liam. 3-litre Audi, eh? Very nice. Very nice indeed. Dazza says he's in Italy. He's in Verona. Rome Milan this year. And guess what? Not one migrant in sight. Funny how no incentives tends to move them on. Well, that's true. Also, he says there's plenty of brie there at the moment as well. Which you can't apparently import into Britain at the moment because of some kind of disease that the cows have got. Anyway, before we talk to Andrew Montford, Director of Net Zero Watch, just remind ourselves, shall we, about Heidi Alexander. Here's what she wants to do to your pavement.
We're making £25 million available to councils so that they can provide financial support to households who want to put in a cross-pavement gully so that you can safely run the cable across the pavement.
She says it as if she's just invented the wheel or something, you know, a cross-pavement gully. Ooh, ooh. This from Susan. Morning, Mike. Here in South Africa, street lights don't work because they strip the cables for copper, which they take to scrapyards. That's because that's what will happen with this ridiculous idea of putting cables on pavements for EVs. Andrew Montford's here. Andrew, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So, this is about as stupid an idea as I've ever heard. Putting gullies across pavements so that you can charge your electric vehicle, but only if you can park where the charge point comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. This is very much the issue. Most people don't have off-street parking. Right. And yeah, as you've said before, they probably won't be able to park in front of their own house too. You know, where I live out in the country, I mean, I actually have a neighbour who has an EV and sort of runs it over a sort of down a conduit. So, you know, anybody going down the pavement has to negotiate the conduit. Actually, a gully for them would improve it. For most people, it will make no difference at all because they won't be able to park anywhere near it. Right. I think in reality, this is what used to be called under the Blair government an eye-catching initiative. You know, the amount of money that they're putting forward is absolutely pathetic. You know, there are millions and millions of cars owners in this country. If you want to get them to have EVs, at least half of them are going to need these gullies, and the money is it's not even close to being enough to do that. No. So really, this is just to enable them to get headlines. And, you know, I mean, you know, let's look on the bright side. It gives us an opportunity to laugh at them too, doesn't it?
Well, that's true. But it would be nice if they actually could be coming up with some ideas that would work and were quite economical and were actually quite innovative. I mean, that's what the government's meant to do, isn't it? I know it's been a long time since anybody actually did that. But, you know, is it asking too much for any of their ideas to actually, one, work, two, save us money?
Yeah, it probably is asking too much of this government. I mean, you know, the thing is, we have probably three major crises sort of looming in the electricity system. So, you know, mucking around with this kind of thing is just nonsense. You know, we've got prices are too high, the grid is unstable, and all our reliable generation, or a large chunk of it, is going to be closing down over the next 5 to 10 years, and it's probably going to be very difficult to replace it. So, yeah, for them to be looking at you know, piffling things like EV conduits, you know, gullies in pavements, it just shows that they are completely deluded and they are not addressing the big problems. And this is why this government is a real threat to the country.
Yeah, and they're so out of ideas that they can only come up with ones which are so ludicrous that they'll never work. Noel says this: you have to have permission from the council to charge a car on the pavement, and guess what? The net zero obsessed councils normally say no. Because that's the other bit about this, the gully thing that you put the cable through. It must have a massive, great sort of plug on the end of it to plug into the car.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you supposed to just leave that lying in the gutter?
I don't know. I don't know what the details are on these things. I kind of had assumed that you run them down the gully, at the times when you want to charge it. But
I see.
The gullies will they will fill with rubbish and dirt and all this sort of thing, and it's going to be a mess. But again, it's about governments getting headlines, not about practicalities like that.
Yeah, it is absolutely unbelievable. Andrew, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. We've got to run a bit short on time this morning, but keep listening, because we've got lots of great ideas coming in from people who are telling us about how awful this is going to be. Let's get a voice note from Darren.
Morning, Mike. Darren from Suffolk. Great show as ever. I'm listening to you from Italy today. I'm in Verona. I've been to Milan, Rome, Verona, Sorrento, Alba, a number of different places in Italy over the last 12 months. And guess what? I haven't seen one migrant. And guess what? None of the hotels are full. And guess what? You don't give incentives to them and they go somewhere else. Funny that, isn't it? This is supposed to be one of the 4 frontiers where migrants come across and stay in Italy, but we don't see any of them every time we come over. Funny that, isn't it? Have a lovely day.
Fascinating. 8:47. Thanks very much indeed. Andy says this. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I assume you mean Heidi Alexander. Terminology is wrong. It's not a gully, it's a trough. That's what I said. That spans the width of the footpath. It allows you to feed the cable from your house to your car. As the cable is in the trough, people can't trip over it. So there's only so the cable stays in the house or inside the porch or something, and you only roll it out when you need to charge your car. But then you still have to park your car there. So if you can't park your car there, where do you feed it then? There's no point in having a gully, because then it doesn't go to where your car is. Seems to me to be a bit flawed. 8:47.
Superman is an immigrant, and yes, the people that we support in this country are immigrants, and if you don't like that, then you're not American.
These Hollywood types, these liberal Hollywood types, they live in a world that is not reflective of real America.
That's a privileged white man in Hollywood saying that. Yeah. So they're always the mouthpieces for these weird movements that have nothing to do with what's actually going on outside the gates of their mansions in Hollywood.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 10 minutes to 9. I'm Mike Graham with you until 10 o'clock. Harry says this: I park at the rear of my house and I've got plenty of space for an EV charger. Unfortunately, I wouldn't have an EV if you paid me. Sorry. Yeah, well, there we are. Sorry to Ed Miliband. Mark Francois here. Mark, very good morning to you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
To Morning Glory. Shadow Defence Minister, of course. On Monday afternoon, it says here, Parliament will be debating a petition which now has over 167,000 signatures, calling on the government to protect Northern Ireland veterans from prosecution.
Correct.
You spoke to us a couple of weeks ago, ahead of this moment. What's actually happening today?
Well, it's even better. It's now over 170,000.
Is it? Good.
And the debate starts at 4:30 this afternoon. So if your viewers want to help defend Northern Ireland veterans, they can go on the parliamentary petition. It's still open, and add their name. Every single name helps put pressure on the government. So what this is about is the governments are trying to change the law, which would have two practical effects. One, it would reopen what we sometimes call a conveyor belt to prosecute Northern Ireland veterans who defended us against the IRA and loyalist terrorists as well. And at the same time, the same measure the government are proposing would make it easier for Gerry Adams and his associates to sue the British taxpayer. So it is absolutely slam dunk two-tier justice. It's one rule for our veterans who may be pursued through the courts, often at the behest of Sinn Féin, and it's making easier for Gerry Adams to sue the government and thus the taxpayer. So we're anticipating a very lively debate in Westminster Hall this afternoon.
I can imagine. But who's going to debate you who doesn't want this? I mean, who would not want the government to protect these people?
This is it's the Northern Ireland office who are behind this. We think they've done some kind of backstairs deal with the Irish government over this. Hopefully all of this will come out in the debate. And the veterans feel so angry about this, you're going to see several hundred veterans this afternoon on motorbikes, what they call Operation Rolling Thunder, coming down Whitehall to support the debate. The veterans themselves, they came up with a petition. The veterans themselves are extremely angry at the way they believe the government is throwing them to the wolves in order to suck up to the Irish government and Sinn Féin, and you know they will make their views very plain this afternoon in advance of that debate.
Yes, and I mean that would be quite a sight, I would imagine, all of those motorcycles coming down.
I think it'll make good telly, as you would say, in your trade. But the really serious point is, why would anyone now want to join the British Army? Armies across the Western world are struggling to recruit and retain soldiers, same in America, Canada, Australia. But in this country, there's no other country on earth that would treat their veterans the way we are treating ours. No. And who would want to join the army, do the right thing, fight for your country, and then maybe be sued in a courtroom 50 years later for your trouble, when you were obeying the orders of the state that sent you there?
Of course. And this is the same Prime Minister, by the way, who talks all the time of how we need to be on a war footing, we want to spend more money on defence, you know, we love our troops, you know, they go out there and they work for us and they
you ask the troops, country. they don't love him.
No, I'm sure they don't. Well, nobody loves Salman because he's managed to upset pretty much every cohort of British society. He's now upset the veterans as well, but he's also been incredibly dismissive of people like your colleague David Davis, who obviously has a very, very part to play in this campaign. He was really rude to him, wasn't he?
Yes, last Wednesday, Sir David raised this in the Commons, and Starmer accused him of political point scoring and, from memory, of cheapening the debate for having had the temerity to raise it. Really interesting. I was there. When the PM said that, there was absolute silence behind him on the Labour benches. Obviously, we got annoyed. But when he sat down, there were no hear-hears. The Labour benches sat there in silence. And that tells me they're not with him, because a lot of these soldiers who fought in Northern Ireland against terrorism were recruited from what we would now call Red Wall seats. You know, the Berries and the Blackburns and the Boltons and the Blackwalls. Those are now overwhelmingly represented by Labour MPs. What Labour MP, because they'll have to vote on this in the autumn, what Labour MP wants to go back to their constituency, where a lot of these old boys now live with their families, and say, guess what, as your Member of Parliament, I voted in Parliament today, 1, to do down our veterans, and 2, to make life easier for Gerry Adams. Who wants to go back to their constituency and say, I voted for that. And there are some Labour MPs who haven't even realised what they're going to be whipped to vote for. Part of today is to make them understand what's at risk.
Right. And do you think there'll be a sort of the dead hand of Lord Hermer somewhere in the back of this?
Well, we believe Lord Hermer is one of those. He's not the only one who is pressing for this, as well as Hilary Benn, because their argument is we have to uphold the sacred Human Rights Act at all costs.
Yes.
These cases, they're saying there were cases in the lower courts that said the Legacy Act, which protects the veterans, was at variance with the Human Rights Act. They could have appealed to the UK Supreme Court to get a definitive legal decision. They deliberately didn't do that because they'd already got the answer from the lower courts that they wanted. So the legal process has not been exhausted on this, but then they're claiming that they have to change the law. They don't. What they're proposing to do, which we will debate today, is two-tier justice. They'll throw our veterans to the wolves for fighting terrorists, and they'll make it easier for some of those alleged terrorists to sue the taxpayer. How on earth could any Labour MP vote for that?
Yeah, it does seem absolutely extraordinary that it's even in front of any kind of law court to change the law to make this possible. You know, it beggars belief. And what chance do you hope to have then of success?
Well, there will not be a vote in Parliament today. That's not. It's a vote on a petition. And thank you to all of those people who signed it, so we can have the opportunity to bring all this to light.
Yeah.
So there won't be any crunch vote today. But if Labour press on, there would be a crunch vote sometime in the autumn. And Tim Collins, Colonel Tim Collins, who famously did that inspirational speech prior to the liberation of Iraq, has done a brilliant op-ed this morning, and he said constituents should ask their MPs, if it comes to it, whose side are you on?
Yeah.
And that pretty much sums it up.
It does. And I mean, if you're not on the right side of this one, I mean, I don't know what business you've got really being an MP, to be honest.
This is about, Mike, when you boil it right down, these people, you know, there were over 700 British soldiers killed during the Troubles, trying to uphold the rule of law to defend the Royal Ulster Constabulary. This is about defending those who defended us. They stood up for us. Many of them aged only 18 or 19. We now have a moral duty to stand up for them. So if you're... Sorry to say it again, but it's important. If your viewers and listeners are watching, get on the website, sign the petition.
Yeah. Mark Francois, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Have a listen to it this afternoon. Mark Francois there, ahead of this debate this afternoon, calling on the government to protect Northern Ireland veterans from prosecution. We've got lots more to do. We'll be announcing the winner later on in the show of the Oasis competition, by the way. Also, this from Kevin in Bolton. He says this: check the wiring regulations. You cannot run high amperage cabling without it being encased in steel conduit. It's illegal, even though the cable is insulated. Well, there's another thing nobody thought of. And Jenny in Bicester, Mike, a gully into your house, so when the road floods, it will have a direct route into your home. Perhaps they've got another bright idea for us. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? Stuart, finally, with regards to the gullies, there's one near me. They ran a cable under the pavement to a 3-foot metal charging post right next to the roadside. This is the only one on a terrace street with no individual parking places. It would be carnage if there were another 4 or 5. You'll need 100-foot cable to go from your charging post to wherever you could find a parking place for your car. Stuart, chilling in Turkey. Listen, we will see you after the news. We've got lots more to do. We're talking to Richard Fuller and Lord Stuart Jackson. This is Talk.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 9, I'm Mike Graham. It is, of course, Monday, the 14th of July, the start of yet another week, at heaven's sake. And it started with a bang, as you might have expected. A couple of big stories on the front pages this morning. Labour's doctors' strike hypocrisy. It's all about how Angela Rayner and the Workers' Rights Bill will soon scrap the right of any employer to actually stop a strike from going ahead, because less than 50% of the people voted for it. They're backing, of course, this measure, which would mean the next time the BMA decide to go on strike, they won't even need to get a 55% turnout or 50% of that turnout. They won't matter how many people vote for a strike. Basically, the threshold won't be there anymore. So unions can organise as many strikes as they like. So there'll be more BMA strikes, there'll be more, no doubt, RMT strikes, there'll be more ASLEF strikes, there'll be more nursing strikes, there'll be more teachers strikes, there'll be more strikes all round. And Labour would have brought it on themselves. How utterly ridiculous is that? Also, front page of the Telegraph, it looks as though more middle-class taxes are coming. A tax rate is coming. The definition of working people is going to shift. Labour turns its focus to higher earners, because why not? They can't go anywhere else because they've got nowhere else to go. Front page of The Sun, time to clear the air, papa. And it's Prince Harry trying to get a truce bid going with his own father, the King, of course. There was a spin doctor meeting organised over the weekend, published in the papers this morning. Tobin Andre, the King's Director of Communications, Liam Maguire, Harry's UK PR team chief, and Meredith Mains, Harry's communications chief. They all went and got themselves photographed drinking on a balcony overlooking Green Park, a stone's throw, as they say, from Buckingham Palace. What were they talking about? Well, they weren't talking about William, because he wasn't allowed any kind of representation there at all. So that's all kicking off too. The big story for most of you this morning, though, has been this idea from Heidi Alexander that she wants to have some kind of pavement gully which runs from your house down to the curbside so that you can charge an electric car. And she wants to buy an electric car, even though she hasn't got one. 03444 499 1000. Let's get a voice note from Tony.
Yeah, regarding these cables going across pavements, mate, especially in our street anyway. My next door neighbour's got 3 cars, and basically we fight for a parking space. If we're lucky to park anywhere near outside your house. If everybody in the street was stupid enough, which we're not, to have an electric car in the first place, to have these wires running, the street would be like Spaghetti Junction, mate. There'd just be wires everywhere, crisscrossing across everything. They're mental, mate, mental. Keep up the good work, mate.
Tony, thanks very much indeed. Yeah, or just go to the petrol station where you find there's an actual place you go where you fill up your car. You don't have to put a petrol pump outside your house. You can just go there and you can even buy a packet of chewing gum or something if you want as well. What is going wrong with these people? Tina says this is a double yellow line on my side of the road, which is a main road. How am I meant to charge an electric car? Very good question. I don't know. Richard Fuller's coming up, Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Let's get it on. Joanna from Salisbury. So when the cable doesn't sit in it properly or teenagers meddle with it, who pays when someone falls over the cable and hurts themselves? Very good question. One from David in South Wales. The pavement cable gully. Mike, it's pretty obvious that you would insert the charging cable into the gully whenever you wanted to charge the car. Then the person would connect the charging cable as they normally would. Yeah, that's all very well, David, but what if you can't park your car in the one spot where the gully comes out? Then you can't charge your car, period. The end. You know, you'd have to wait for somebody. It'd be like one of those, you know, French farces. You know, you see somebody pulling out of the space. So you run to your car, you drive it up the road, you go to put it in the space, and somebody reverses in just before you. You could be doing that all day, and you'd never charge your car. Meanwhile, it would just run out of charge as you were trying to move it into the space. Just ridiculous. Richard Fuller's here, Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Richard, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
We've been highlighting this story today, not deliberately, just so happened people sort of picked up on it. We like to try and run with the vibe of what people are worried about and thinking about. This Heidi Alexander plan to start digging up your pavement to put a gully in so that you can charge your electric car that she wants to use a public subsidy for you to buy is possibly the most ridiculous Labour policy this week, and it's only Monday.
Well, look, you should be picking up on it, and the public should be picking up on it, because later today, apparently, Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, is going to be in the House of Commons saying that if you don't agree with him then on net zero, that somehow you're an extremist or an ideologue.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what an extremist is. I think the public know that. It's when politicians tell people to do things that they don't think makes any sense at all.
Yeah, exactly right. And nothing about this idea makes any sense at all. They're actually asking you to, one, get an electric car, which you probably don't really want, or if you did want one, you'd already have one. They want to use public taxpayers' money to subsidise people to buy them. They then want to use more taxpayers' money to give to the councils to dig holes in the pavement so that you can run a cable from your house to the curbside, but you can only use it if you can actually park there, which most people have told us they can't park right outside their house. They just can't.
Yeah. Look, Mike, here's how effective economies, effective industries work, in my view. That the companies deliver a product that the public want to buy, that the public can afford to buy, that when they want to recharge or refuel their vehicle, they can do it in a matter of minutes, not in a matter of hours. These are questions which the traditional petrol car industry have solved over many decades. These are questions which the electric car industry is still to resolve. I'm all for making us less carbon dependent, but we can't do that on the backs of people who go out to work every day and say you've got to pay more tax because of the fanatical ideas of the Secretary of State for Energy, including balmy ideas like the one you've been talking about this morning.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, this morning we're told that they're going to have to redefine the phrase working people, because I don't know about you, Richard, but when they started trying to define working people, it was a real struggle for them, if you remember, during the election campaign. And I kind of settled on what I think they mean by working people, basically people who work for the public sector. So they're now having to rethink that so that they can tax more working people and somehow render the slightly better off in terms of pay liable for more taxes.
Well, look, I think you're onto something, Mike, but I think actually it's people who are dependent on the state. That's who socialists think are working people, that you depend on the state. That's why they've taken such a weak approach on really much needed reforms to welfare to bring down that burden on taxpayers. But also, when they talk now about moderating it, a lot of people in the public sector will find that they're caught up in that definition as well. So I think this is the 7th or 8th redefinition of working people by the Prime Minister. All we know is that the Chancellor, having told the country that she'd, quote-unquote, fix the problems she'd inherited last October with those very big tax rises, now we're going into another summer where everyone's talking about, well, how much more is Rachel Reeves going to increase my taxes?
Right. And meanwhile, she's also been busy this weekend. I don't know if I can show you this particular clip of her. She wants to reinvigorate the chess business. This is Rachel Reeves in a room full of people playing chess. I'm not quite sure what the musical accompaniment was meant to be supposedly for. She wants to give £1.5 million to chess, apparently. Now, you might remember one of the things that she claimed she was a chess champion before she got in, when she also claimed she was an economist. She wasn't a chess champion, and she's not much of an economist either, but, you know, it's obvious they're trying to make her look more sympathetic now.
Well, look, I don't mean to stretch the analogy, but perhaps the Chancellor and Prime Minister as King and Queen look at all of us as the pawns, working people as the pawns. Just go out there, work hard, and we'll tax you as hard as we can to pay for the things that we think are important. And if chess is the key to a successful economy, I think the Chancellor's pretty much on the wrong track. What she needs to do is she needs to recognise that there are people in our society who work very hard to make things, make an income for their families, start a business, grow their own savings to look after themselves in retirement. And we need to build a society that rewards that sense of self-reliance rather than, as this government is doing, just trying to say that we're going to tax you and make you more reliant on the state in every measure that we take.
Yeah. Good to talk to you. Richard Fuller, MP, thank you very much indeed. Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. This from Stephen in Sheffield. In creating these gullies in the pavement, have they considered blind people and how their white canes will get stuck every time they pass a house? It's bad enough we have obstacles all over the pavement at the best of times, but to have permanent gullies is a nightmare for people like me, says Steve. And this one from Paula, in Bexhill-on-Sea. So with the cable going through a gully in the pavement to the curb for electric car charging, won't there be something on the end of it in the road waiting to be run over by other drivers? Well, that's what I was asking. But apparently the idea is you just put this thing in the gully when you want to use it. But that's only going to work, as I said, if your car is actually parked there. That's the ridiculous thing. Bogner Bob says you're forgetting that most new electric cars are on mobility schemes, so they can have a marked disabled bay outside their house. Well, maybe. I very much doubt that, though. Let's get a voice note right now from Patrick, is it?
Hi, Mike. It's Patrick in East Yorkshire. Here comes another loony tune coming out of 10 Downing Street. Don't they ever think about anything before they start spouting off this rubbish? This electric car business, it was only a month ago that was a week off having blackouts. So can you tell me where the capacity is coming from our electric grid to cope with all this? Because it won't come from the sun, and it won't come from wind turbines. So where's it going to come from? That's all, folks.
That's a very good question. Nobody knows the answer to that, right? They just don't know. Let's talk to Lord Stuart Jackson, Conservative peer, of course. And maybe he knows the answer. Lord Stuart, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. Things are going from bad to worse for this government. I'm not quite sure where to begin, really, but certainly it looks as though they haven't got enough money for whatever it is they want to do. They seem to want to get closer to Europe than we've been since people voted to leave it. We seem to be 1 minute on a war footing and the next minute stopping the boats. You know, it's all over the place.
Yeah, I think you touch on an important point, Mike, that with the previous Labour governments, whether you agreed or disagreed with the Blair government, for instance, and Gordon Brown to a certain extent, you always felt there was a plan. You might not agree with it, but you thought, you know, there was a coherent plan and they knew where they wanted to go to. It seems evident that this Labour government didn't really have a plan. They were quite good at campaigning in the election and rubbishing the Conservatives, but they didn't have their own plan, even though they had 14 years to prepare. And what we've seen is lurching from one disastrous policy to another. We're now, as you say, redefining middle class or working people so they can go after people's pensions and savings. I've been involved in the Lords on the disastrous Employment Rights Bill, which will price people out of jobs, give people day one rights, which will mean employers won't employ people, they'll make more people redundant, and it'll have absolutely the opposite effect. ditto the Renters' Rights Bill, which will reduce the amount of properties for rent and force rents up for working people on modest means. There's just two examples, but this government is just completely incoherent.
I mean, it really is, and unfortunately, the effects of it, and possibly the long-term effects of it, are going to last a lot longer than their government's going to last. I mean, I was talking to Harry Cole this morning. He's written his piece because he's off to America to work for the Sun there, obviously. He's not leaving because of tax or because he can't make his business work, but so many people are. 40,000 last year moved to Dubai alone. This year it's going to be probably even bigger. And as the number of properly tax-paying people gets reduced in this country, we're paying more and more people benefits and all sorts of other things who are not contributing to the economy. So the sums will not add up in the end.
Yes, because I was mentioning the Blair government before. Whatever you thought of them, at least they did try to tackle welfare dependency, and they did try to tackle reform in the NHS.
Yeah.
This government is not doing the latter. They won't do. Wes Streeting won't do anything that will cause him to be unpopular with Labour activists, because he has an eye on the leadership of the Labour Party when Starmer's gone. In terms of welfare, very modest welfare reductions of $5 billion, which were mooted a couple of weeks ago, have been shelved. So, you know, where is the government's long-term reform of governance and politics in this country? It's nowhere. And they're obsessed with this quasi-religious zeal on net zero, which is going to cost a lot of people money. It's going to cost households money in terms of cost of living. They're obsessed with the woke agenda. They're doing nothing about the diversity and inclusion people involved in local government and national government and quasi-quangos, non-government departments. You know, the fundamental change of politics and government that is needed in this country is not happening. And it reminds me, I was too young, but history tells me that this is very similar to what it was in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Trade unions rampant, inflation, interest rates going up, unemployment going down, lots of talented people leaving the country, giving up. It's a terrible position to be in, and it's completely avoidable.
It really is, and I'm old enough to remember the 70s, unfortunately, and, you know, it was a very different country then as well. You know, we didn't have the influx of immigration that we've got now. We had a much more kind of monocultural society, if you like. You know, it was easy to see, you know, where the kind of the demarcation lines were. There wasn't, you know, crime on the streets in the same way there is now. There wasn't, you know, a complete and utter sort of degradation of what I would call British manners, you know. You wouldn't see rubbish everywhere. It wasn't, you know, it was a much more proud country in a way. So when things got a bit difficult, when, you know, when I was told at the age of 12 or 13, you know, we're going to have a 3-day week, you're only going to go to school one morning a week, and you're going to sit at home for about 3 months or 4 months with electricity only once in the morning for an hour and once in the evening for an hour, we all just kind of got on with it. I can't imagine this country in its current state being able to deal with any of that.
No, it's very worrying, and also the geopolitical situation is very worrying as well. We've imported people into this country who don't share our values. Unfortunately, we've allowed parts of the country to be ghettoised. We have that shared sense of community cohesion that we should have, and we did have in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that Nigel Farage and Reform are doing better is that he's articulating those issues. He's not necessarily offering solutions at the moment, but many people are fed up with both the main parties, and it's for my party to try and articulate a really positive way forward. You know that in the 70s, Margaret Thatcher said, look, Britain's decline is not inevitable. We can face down the evil empire of the Soviet Union. We can face down the trade unions. We can be a more business-friendly, entrepreneurial, low-tax, low-regulation country. And that's what we did in the 80s, and we were the envy of the world.
Yeah.
We can, I think, recapture that feeling, but not under this Labour government, which cares more about supranational, international treaties than it does UK domestic law.
And I think
the interests of the British people.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely clear to see. Lord Stuart Jackson, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Lord Stuart Jackson, Conservative peer. Let me read you this. This is from Kevin Byrne OBE, who's the founder of Checker Trade, who's got in touch with this message. Hi Mike, I've done well in life. I built a national brand and sold it, and I'm now in a process of thinking, where should I go? Because there is no hope or glory in this country anymore. I've lost my belief in this country. I pay my taxes like everyone else, but what does the government do with it? They invite illegals into the country and spend our taxes on them. Where is this country going? I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel right to me. So I'm considering either Portugal, or if I can get in Jersey. Will I go? It will depend on Nigel getting in or not. Thanks for the great show. Kevin, fascinating. We may need to talk to you some more about that in some detail, but thank you very much for getting in touch. Coming up, we're going to speak with Zia Youssef, Head of Reform UK. I'm sure he'll be really interested in what Kevin had to say just there. One more quick voice note from Gaz.
Hey Mike, it's Gaz from Bolton. There's a simple solution to the electric vehicle situation. I'm an electric vehicle driver myself, and I do several thousand miles a week. And last month I wasted 39 hours charging at various charging points around the UK. When you get to turn up to them, they don't work, or you don't get the full capacity out of them. But how many people have got cordless drills, and when the cordless drill batteries run out, you take the cordless drill battery out and you replace it with a fully charged one. Should have done exactly the same thing with cars, that every single car had exactly the same battery. You pull into the service station, you drop the battery and you put the other battery off, and then somebody else goes off and charges it. They do it in China, you lease the batteries in the car. The UK have just got it completely wrong. Cheers, pal.
Yeah, interesting. 39 hours charging your car. Imagine that. That's like, you know, practically nearly 2 days out of a week charging your car. It's insane. It doesn't work. It's 9:22.
Do you still get called Jet Diane, or have people managed to get over that and call you by your name now?
It depends. It depends entirely on the situation. People go, Diane.
How on earth did you end up getting involved?
I'd done a fitness competition, and it'd been photographed and videoed. In the very early days, that it wasn't a bodybuilding competition, because I'd been a dancer and a choreographer and teacher and stuff beforehand. So I was sort of spotted, and then I had the casting agent, Andy Norgate, who went on to be one of the referees in the whole of the original series.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, here for about another half an hour. It's 9:25. This from Peter. It says, morning, Mike. I remember the Sun headline with the last one leaving, turn the lights out. Yeah, I remember that. That was way back in the days when Neil Kinnock was about to become the next Prime Minister, or so everybody thought. When it looked like Kinnock was getting in. We are now in that position. The only difference is we won't have to turn the lights out. Net Zero will make sure they're not on. Yeah, absolutely right. Incredible stuff. Let's talk to Zia Yusuf, head of Reform UK, of course. A couple of things to talk about. Head of Doge, I should say, at Reform UK. Very good morning to you, Zia.
Morning, Mike.
Good to see you. Plenty to talk about this morning. In addition to whenever we're going to start seeing this business of migrants being detained, I keep seeing tweets from Keir Starmer saying, you know, illegal migrants will now be detained and deported. I don't see any evidence of that, and I don't see any evidence of where they're going to be detained. I was talking to Rafe Heidel-Manku this morning, and he said, rather tongue-in-cheek, presumably he means detained in hotels.
It's all rhetoric, it's all garbage, no one's listening, which is why his approval ratings have collapsed at historic speed. Look, there's north of 1.2 million people here in this country illegally already. They are crossing the channel illegally at record numbers, right? So things aren't not improving fast enough. They are getting demonstrably worse every single week. And the only way we're going to solve this problem, Mike, and restore a social contract that is hanging by a thread in this country is by deporting every single one of those 1.2 million people who are here. We need to be standing up enormous amounts of detention capacity. We need huge numbers of charter flights. We need return agreements with countries to take these people back. And if they don't take them back, we need to be doing things like stopping issuing visas altogether. We need to be scrapping the foreign aid. You know, we've still got countries where we give foreign aid out in the tens of millions. We issue tons of visas to who are refusing to even take back the criminals that those countries have languishing in our prisons. And the reason for that, Mike, is because we've had gutless, witless politicians in this country for decades, and that will change when Nigel's the Prime Minister.
Yeah, because watching, you know, Macron last week in the sort of mini summit that he had with Keir Starmer, you know, it seemed to be all about, you know, the optics, the hugs, the handshakes, we've signed a deal, therefore that means something. It doesn't really mean anything, it seems to me. I mean, this one in, one out thing is not anything like one in, one out. We know it's at least 17 in and one out, possibly, and maybe not even one out anyway.
Exactly. What we need is none in and all out. I'd actually disagree. I think it does mean something. I think Macron is playing the United Kingdom, and I think he's laughing at the United Kingdom. You know, we had this big round of applause because he talked about loaning us the bio tapestry, while all that does is obfuscate the fact that the French border force, you've seen that picture where they're literally taking pictures of illegal migrants departing from French shores under the watchful eye of French border force to arrive in this country illegally, to leech off the state, to get endless free stuff by them. We come on to talk about what my Doge team has already uncovered. But do you know what's actually happening? British taxpayers are actually paying Macron and the French government £700 million for that privilege, which is why he's so rosy and smiling all the time. Macron is laughing at us.
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. And you've been tweeting this week about the first set of findings that have been discovered by the Doge unit. We're talking about circus tickets, crazy golf trips, Amazon parcels, all being paid for by us.
Yeah, I mean, the jokes write themselves.
Yeah.
County council taking asylum seekers to the circus is not a sentence that is going to do anything for the blood pressure of people listening and watching this programme, Mike. And, you know, it's not just that. We've seen tens of thousands of pounds, in fact, actually hundreds of thousands of pounds on fast food, Domino's, Nando's, McDonald's. You're seeing huge amounts of money being spent on things like Virgin Atlantic flights.
Yeah.
Those are long-haul flights, by the way. And so what we're seeing is that people who come to this country illegally, you know, we talk about the social contract in this country hanging by a thread. If you come to this country illegally, you get basically a free life of leisure. You get free healthcare, free accommodation, free trips, free activities, free fast food, free TV licenses. We also found Netflix subscriptions, and apparently they'd watched everything on Netflix because then they needed Disney Plus. So we found thousands of pounds of Disney Plus subscriptions. How many people watching and listening to this struggle to who are cancelling their own subscriptions? services to make ends meet, who are struggling to find time or the money to take their own children to the circus or safari parks or the cinema or trampolining or skateboarding. I mean, it's just the most horrific abomination, and people in this country are getting angrier and angrier, and if something doesn't change soon, I think things are going to get very bad indeed.
And what do these council officials say to you when you uncover this stuff and you ask them, you know, what's all this for? Why are you paying for all this? Why have these people got Netflix accounts? What's going on?
They just hand wave it away. They just hand wave it away. And by the way, this is the tip of the iceberg, Mike. There's more to come. You're going to see even more, frankly, horrific wasting of taxpayer money.
Yeah.
Look, the reality is, Mike, they hand wave it away because they know they can. There's been no accountability for the way taxpayers' money is spent for decades now. I mean, you know, you look at everything from the billions and billions of pounds, tens of billions on HS2 that was just spaffed all, which we got nothing, or the 6 billion a year on asylum hotels. But I think the reason why this stuff really grates on people is because, as I said, we hear it time and time again from people in this country. They say, I can't find time to take my own, I'm working 2 jobs. I would love to take my kids out to the cinema or to activities or to the safari park. They're taking people to the safari park. So there's a total culture of impunity. And what this country needs, Mike, I'll tell you, the amount of time I've now spent in local councils and county halls, and the more you look at it all, the more you realise this country needs a total reboot. It needs a factory reset, and that's what a reform government will offer.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the things today that are winding my listeners and viewers up, this business of Heidi Alexander coming out yesterday and saying she wants to give £25 million to councils so that they can subsidise people putting these ridiculous little gullies into the pavement so that they can run a cable down to charge their electric car, which of course they'll only be able to do if they can actually park it there, you know? And, you know, again, it's taxpayers' money they're using. They talk about it as if it's their money.
Yeah, no, and it's all pet projects of all the things British people are not crying out for. Let's unpack that, by the way. And this is what you see time and again. And the more time I spend in these local councils, the more you realise the second and third order effects of these appalling student politician decisions are much worse than just that headline amount of money, Mike. Because what's also going to happen is they're going to close the roads. Right? So there's going to be tons of congestion. When they close the roads, how many times do you drive? If you drive past a road that is closed, or you see supposed building works going on, construction work on a road, the majority of the time, and people watching and listening to this will recognise this, there's no one actually working.
No.
So those works take forever and ever and ever. It drives people potty. And again, nobody's asking for any of this stuff. The reason why, it's not just that money, they're also trying to subsidise more electric vehicles because there is no demand for these cars.
Right.
And so instead of just allowing the market to work, look, I like Teslas, they're quite fun and cool cars. If you want to go and buy a Tesla, go buy a Tesla. That's fine. Let the private markets work. Do exactly what's happening in America, for example, where Trump is taking away these EV mandates.
Yeah.
What happens is you have these student politicians with harebrained ideas about how the world works, which do not match reality, who go and spend taxpayers' money on their own pet project. This is what you see writ large across all of these councils, and then they claim poverty and plead poverty when it comes to actually spending money on things that British people actually want, like their potholes fixed or getting their bins collected.
Yeah, and then of course Heidi Alexander herself was asked, well, of course you've got an electric car, right? No, apparently not. Even though she wants everybody else to have one, she says she might buy one the next time she gets a new car. But I mean, you know, it's the audacity of these people who they just, you know, do as I say, not as I do.
Well, of course, it's Orwellian, isn't it? And it's you know, some animals all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. All the same stuff. You know, how many times you see these left-wing and far-left MPs attacking private schools, only to find that they send their own children to private schools. This is the thing you should see again. These people who make these laws and make these rules under which everyone else must live are totally insulated from the effects that they have on people, right? If you're driving around in a ministerial car, you're reasonably, you're not that afraid of having your phone snatched from you, whereas everybody else is walking around with their smartphone. Walk around London. I mean, that's what you hear, by the way, whenever anyone comes to London who hasn't been here for a few years, they talk about London like it's a favela.
Yeah, exactly right.
A knife crime is committed, and the data supports this, a knife crime is committed in Sadiq Khan's London every 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And when it's now been totally normalised.
It's shocking. And then we had that awful one just the other day back end of last week in Knightsbridge. A guy just stabbed to death outside Park Tower Casino, you know, which is meant to be one of these sort of upper class parts of the city. Yeah, I mean, I find that when I was younger, you'd go to places like, Rome, and you'd go to places like Barcelona, and you'd always be told, look out for the pickpockets. Now it's like, literally, I mean, I've never felt more unsafe in terms of what somebody might want to rob from me in London.
Absolutely, and I use that term favela advisedly, because if you've been to favelas in Latin America, what locals will tell you is, well, don't wear anything flashy. Don't even take a phone, because you're just bringing risk, and actually you're probably bringing mortal risk upon yourself. That is the state of affairs now in London. I don't understand why anyone would wear a watch of any value whatsoever, because you're not just risking it being stolen. No. You are risking losing your life at the hands of these appalling criminals, and all that's happening while the police seem to have infinite amounts of time and infinite amounts of resource to police tweets. The judiciary moves at great speed to ensure that speech is policed and punished at an extraordinary pace, and yet when it comes to actual crimes that affect people every single day, the kind of crimes that everyone is terrified of in this country, apparently there's no police resource for that whatsoever, and the judiciary seem to be utterly incapable and unwilling of imprisoning anybody for any sort of crime. I mean, look, shoplifting is now basically legal, right? You have the shoplifters charters, go in and steal. I mean, if you go on TikTok and go look at and just search shoplifting, you will see so many videos, people sharing user-generated content of people just recording, people walking into Pret stores, walking into department stores and just taking stuff and walking out. Half the time they don't even cover their faces because they have that much impunity and that much confidence that the police in this country will do nothing about it.
Yeah, I know. It's a shocking state of affairs. It really is. Zia, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Zia Yusuf there, the head of Doge at Reform UK. This from Alan in Middlesbrough says, this ridiculous Labour EV idea would be in breach of the Public Highway Act, which prohibits obstructing pavements with anything that could cause danger or obstruction, unless Starmer creates two-tier pavement systems, of course. Well, you might well ask that. Let's get a voice note from Hannah.
Great show. We've put our house on the market. We're looking to go, as in our two children. The final straw was this increase in taxes, and then our local town turning a B&M store into an HMO for boat boys. So the local market town is no longer safe for our daughter to go meet her friends. And on top of that, I had a problem on the M1 that was closed, and had I been in an electric car, I wouldn't have made it. I was 6 hours stuck on a motorway. No electric car would have got me through that, so you can shove it.
Yeah, Hannah, I'm so sorry. She's leaving the country. She's had enough. Young kids, these are not wealthy people. These are people who have worked hard for everything they've got, and they don't want it here anymore. They want to leave it behind. Kevin in Barnstable says, Mike, the cross-pavement gully is nothing more than a permanent extension lead from the house electricity to a socket somehow fitted in the street. It will have to be lockable and tamper-proof, but watch the crooks of the dark hours come out the woodwork and circumvent those features in the simplest and most obvious of ways. There will be all sorts of goings-on because of this desperate and consequently stupid idea. Millibrain is a zealous twerp, giving him a bacon sandwich and send him on his way. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? 9:38.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:40. I'm Mike Graham with you until 10 o'clock, of course, when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. Denise says, Mike, I live in a street where we only can park on one side of the road. My house is situated on the non-parking side, so does that mean that the cable would then run across the road to plug into the car? It's ridiculous. What a stupid scheme. Well, maybe you can put another gully in, and you put a gully across the whole road. Maybe that would work. Stephen in Belfast, the pavement trough for cables. What happens when it fills up with rotting leaves and other detritus? The cable will sit proud above the surface, roll on numerous claims for trip hazards. Yippee! I mean, it is bonkers, isn't it? JJ says the same. These gullies for electric cars, how long will it take for them to fill up with leaves and other debris, making them useless? And whose responsibility will it be to clean them out? Well, yeah. And Emma in Kent, they can't even fix the potholes. How are they going to get the EV cables done? It's true. They can't do anything. Let's talk to Kate Nichols, OBE. I'll tell you what they can do in this government. They can wreck hospitality. She's the chair of UK Hospitality, and it's not going too well. I think 69,000 is the number of jobs so far lost in hospitality since this Labour government's policies have kicked in, mostly in April. Kate, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike.
I'm not trying to be frivolous here because it's a very serious topic, but this government has been very successful at ruining hospitality, hasn't it?
Well, we have had very significant tax increases coming through in the last budget, £3.4 billion tax hit to the sector. As you say, we've seen 69,000 jobs lost across the sector since the first quarter of this year, in contrast to last year when we generated 18,000 new jobs. And you're seeing closures at record levels, almost as high as we've seen during the COVID pandemic. So it has been a hammer blow to our neighbourhood restaurants, independent bars and community pubs that are so vital to our high streets and communities. And those assets, once lost, are lost for good.
Yeah, I know, absolutely right. And I mean, I think I read a story, I think it was from you guys the other day, saying that there could be as many as one pub lost every single day from now until the end of the year.
The forecast for this year is for one pub a day. There is a forecast that potentially it could be as high as 1 in 10 of our restaurants who are suffering even more than the pub sector at this present point in time because of the high costs. And particularly it's the tax on jobs and it's the tax on property. So there's a real danger that our sector will be taxed out and our communities, our economy and our social lives will be much worse off.
Yeah, I think that is the problem. And they don't seem to care very much. They don't address it very much. I mean, you see Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves talking about creating jobs in all sorts of places and, you know, building business confidence and talking about how, you know, business confidence has never been higher, when actually none of that's true, because they might be planning to produce and present a load of jobs to us, but they haven't actually done it yet.
Well, also, these are small businesses. They're in every constituency, every town centre, high street, neighbourhood, high street and parade of shops. These are the jobs that are there locally for people at every skill level, every age, every experience level. So this is where you are going to get that positive generation of growth, income and tax revenue, vital for funding vital public services. But at the moment, the high street is being overlooked, both retail and hospitality suffering hard as a result of government policies, and we urge the government to really prioritise it as we go into the planning for the next budget to make sure that we can keep and protect the jobs and businesses that are so important to generating that income and community value.
And does it come down to something like reversing the national insurance hike or what?
I think you need to make sure that we've got business rates reform that was promised in the current round of speculation around tax increases coming through. The Chancellor, we need to be very clear, the Chancellor cannot balance the nation's books on the backs of the high street and hospitality, so no more tax increases. Make sure we get business rates reform delivered in full. There was a permanent lower multiplier promised. It has to be delivered if we're going to save them. And yes, you're right, look again at that national insurance contribution, particularly the threshold. It's hitting entry-level jobs hard, it's hitting part-time jobs hard. The tax on somebody working less than 20 hours a week has gone up by 75%. So it's working people who are being taxed out of their jobs and seeing lower incomes as a result.
Yeah, and now they're going to come after us for more money. So, I mean, are you worried that they might even try and get even more out of you?
We are really worried about that because, as you say, they haven't prioritised the high street, they haven't prioritised hospitality. It's seen as a sort of nice to have or a Cinderella, and actually it is reaching breaking point. We are in danger of seeing business failure at a scale we've not seen before, job losses accelerating, and that will make the country worse off, the Treasury poorer, and you will see the tax revenue coming down. We are the most heavily taxed sector of the economy already. 75% of our profits go back to the Treasury in tax, £55 billion, funding vital public services, closed businesses and people who are not working can't pay tax, and the government needs to wake up to that reality fast.
And this must be why everything's so expensive, isn't it? Because, I mean, you guys and your members, they have to keep putting their prices up to cover, just to make ends meet, by the looks of it.
Absolutely, and put simply, the money coming through the front door isn't enough to cover all those costs and tax increases that the government is imposing. And there's lots more that is being looked at. It's regulatory costs, packaging, tourism taxes, bed taxes, coffee cup taxes. The list is never ending, but all of those regulations and taxes cost us. And at the moment, we're doing our very best to minimise the pass-through in price to our customers, but we are having to put up prices in order to make ends meet and to keep businesses alive. So if the government wants to bring down inflation, if it wants to generate jobs and growth locally in all parts of the country, it needs to be backing our hospitality businesses on the high street and delivering policies that keep costs to them as low as possible.
Yeah. Kate Nichols, OBE, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you, Chair of UK Hospitality, which, as you heard her saying, is in dire straits thanks to the policies of this government, who don't seem to care about hospitality, who don't seem to care about the restaurant business, the pub business. They don't really care about keeping it going. In fact, it looks as though there will be one pub closing every single day from now until the end of the year, thanks to their policies. This one from Mike, who says, electric car gullies. Around the corner from me, there's a terrace street with 200 houses. Can you imagine the cost of putting in 200 charging gullies? Not to mention the fact that you do not own that piece of road outside your house. Anyone can park there. So you come home and find a diesel van parked outside your house and you're down to 1% charge on your car. It's absolutely bonkers. It is completely mad. Absolutely mad. Joanna from Salisbury says, hi Mike, I keep hearing all the time about millions being spent hither and thither in the last few weeks from chess, electric car grants, pavement gullies, Syria, etc. Why are we surprised the doctors want more pay when they see all the giveaways? They think there is more hidden money to be had. Well, that's very true. You may be right. Brendan says, what happens if one of these cables ends up damaged and the owner of the house and or car is unaware? We get a little something called rain. Who's going to be liable for Johnny at number 42 being electrocuted by a puddle? Yeah, well, I don't know. It sounds great, does it? Let's get a voice note from Zach.
Morning, Mike. Down here in Brighton, our glorious Green and Labour maniacs at the council have blessed us with 24-hour bus lanes, which I'll have, empty for 24 hours in the day. I've got one of those fancy stop-start engines, but I always make sure to turn that feature off whenever I'm stuck in traffic, just to share a bit of diesel love with the cyclists and help keep the emission stream alive. Apparently, the longer you sit in standstill traffic, the more the planet thanks you.
Fantastic. Zach, well played. Thank you very much indeed. Morning, Mike. Yorkshire Water, who have increased prices 30% and announced drought and hosepipe ban, holding events to give advice on flooding, says Carol in East Yorkshire. Oh, my goodness. And Mike's in Rhodes. He says, totally agree with the lad who called in from Blackburn regarding charging points and rows of terrace 2 up, 2 downs across the country. I've said that for years. Once Millipede and Heidi have sorted that, they work out how to do the same for the thousands of people who live in high-rise blocks. Yeah, what are you going to do there? I mean, so many buildings now are being built without any spaces for cars. That was one of the things that they wanted to do as an initiative to stop people actually having cars. Now you want to put gullies in the street to get to the car. Huh? Has anybody here actually got any idea what's going on? It's 9:48.
breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I said this morning when we started the show, it's Bastille Day, and everybody looked at me like I'd gone mad, but apparently it really is Bastille Day, and so they're all marching around there wearing blue hats in Paris. I'm surprised Starmer's not there. Why has Starmer not popped over to see his new mate? Emmanuel Macron, my good friend, and the man who he seems to have done some kind of deal with on pretty much everything. Julie Hartley-Brewer coming up shortly. Let's go to the phones, though, first of all. Herbie is in Harrow. Hello, Herbie.
Yes, good morning, Mike.
Morning, sir. What can I do for you?
Well, somebody said earlier about the cables being stolen or nicked. You know, the field day, the Scrap Boys will have a field day with all these cables hanging around.
Yeah.
The thing is, Mike, what about these tower blocks where you've got 30, 40, 50 flats? How are they going to put all the charging points in for those?
Well, they can't, can they? I mean, unless they've got space to put, say, their own car park. But like I said, a lot of buildings now, they build them without space for cars.
Exactly. So where are they going to park? You're not going to be able to do it. And what about the amount of electric cars that have gone up in smoke, which we've seen, and buses?
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Dear, you know, when they're left to be charged, because people put the plugs in and they leave them and go somewhere else.
Call me old-fashioned. It doesn't sound like a recipe for greatness, does it? I mean, you know, having a cable with high-powered electricity running under the pavement, which could get very wet. I know that, you know, people will say it's all insulated and all that, and you're plugging it into a car. I mean, it sounds mad to me.
Yeah, but Mike, I'm waiting for the first person to trip over a cable and start to sue either the company or the owner of the house.
Yeah.
And if they're not insured, God help them, they're going to be bankrupt.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely right. Good man. Herbie, thank you. I think David will say something about this as well. He thinks, I think these wires are going to be a trip hazard. David's in Gloucestershire. Hello, David.
Good morning, Mike.
Morning.
How are we all?
Very well indeed. This is about as mad an idea as I've heard.
Well, it is. I'm completely and utterly blind, and this is complete and utter trip hazard for anybody that's blind or anybody that's blind, disabled, children with push. You know, you've got children with pushchairs. You imagine they go and grab hold of a cable. If it's a bit damp, they'll have a dead child. Oh, that'd be a good starter for 10, wouldn't it?
I know. It's just so ridiculous. The whole idea just is so mad. Because the thing that troubles me about a lot of this stuff is that this is meant to be the sort of the sort of technology that is so modern, that is absolutely revolutionising life, and they're sort of using Stone Age technology to fire it up.
Well, it's just totally.
You know, bury a hole in the ground.
Well, if you go round to my sister's house, I mean, you know, she's in a cul-de-sac in the back of Gloucester there, you know, it's all, you know, it's 1970s, and nobody can
I'm just telling you sent me,
and it'd be like a spider's web of cables going here, there and everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
You know, with people running extensions, and the local kids would have even if it's not the thieves, the local kids would have a field day with...
Also, what if you move house, right? When you move house, when you forget, you take your gully with you? Hey?
Well, probably.
Who knows?
I don't know where 1.25 million would go anyway, because if you actually work out the labour, digging it, blah, 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 I think it's 100 quid a cable, you know, a gully minimum, or not more. You know, so how many gullies do you put in? Not many, I wouldn't have thought.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Great call, David. Thank you very much indeed. One from Chris in Toddington. He says, question, on these cross-pavement gullies to charge your car, what if you can't park in front of your house? Are you expected to then run the cable down the road? How long will the cable need to be? Well, about 4 miles for some people, you know. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's a metal channel with a rubber slot, says Sean, that you push your charging cable into, that is plugged into your home, unless, of course, your house is less than 22 feet from a corner, in which case you would be disqualified because of bylaws. Deary me. And Alison says, I'm still recovering from the grazes after tripping on a broken paving slab on our road's pavements. After writing to the council, they've just replaced a group of slabs where it happened. Trouble is, there is a raised edge now that is another trip hazard, and we already have about 4 charging spots built into lampposts, but it is rare that any are used. Well, that's the point. Let's get a voice note from Simon.
Good morning, Mike. Have you ever thought, once you've got, say, for instance, you've got a brand new say petrol van, right, and it's insured, and then it's involved in an accident, and then it's written off, then the insurance company turns around and says, we're going to give you like for like. Well, come 2030 or 2040 or whatever it is, what's the like for like going to be? Just going to be an EV van if they actually exist? Just a thought. Cheers, bye. Simon Devon.
Simon, thanks very much indeed. Well, EV vans are really, really expensive, is all I know. And most people who have vans say, I couldn't afford to buy one, you know, because they're upwards of about 80,000, 90,000 quid. Now, over the past few weeks, you'll have heard our Oasis competition, which gave you the chance to see the gig of the century. This morning, a winner has been randomly selected, and I can reveal that a Talk listener has won the competition. Isn't that great? 2 tickets, an overnight stay in a hotel, and £5,000 worth of spending money. And the winner is Nicola in Kent. So congratulations, Nicola. We'll be in touch with your tickets to see Oasis Live 25 this Saturday up in Manchester. Tremendous, absolutely brilliant. Now, the story this morning started out as, you know, they're going to raise taxes, they're going to come after middle-class people. Rachel Reeves, of course, says that she can't confirm or deny, but she's going to stay within her fiscal rules. Well, let's have a look at what she's been saying over that period of time about working people.
To provide security for working people, a government on the side of working people, to secure Britain's future and to deliver prosperity for working people, to ensure security for working people. There is nothing Labour about working people paying the price for economic irresponsibility. We can spend more on the priorities of working people. When working people are paying their taxes, giving working people the chance to fulfil their potential, we protected working people. I will always put working people first.
Working people, there we are. That's what she likes. Now, let's talk to Heidi Alexander, because she wants everybody to get an electric car. But, of course, you know what we're going to ask her, don't you? Have a look at this.
We're making £25 million available to councils so that they can provide financial support to...
You would like all of us to buy more electric cars?
I would. If I had an EV, I'd be asking myself questions about how I would get the electric cable across to the car.
So you don't have one. So the Transport Secretary doesn't have an electric car, but you're telling everyone else to have one.
I don't have an electric car, Laura, but I'm a lot like, you know, millions of people in this country who... I bought a new car about 6 years ago. I'm thinking about the next car that I will purchase, and it will definitely be an electric vehicle. I'm not in the habit of changing my car on a yearly basis, expensive as it is.
I mean... She's got a ministerial car, I suppose. Hello, Julie Hartley-Brewster.
Hello. Yeah,
Good morning.
I don't think any cabinet minister's got an electric car. I don't think.
But they'd like us to have one.
Yeah. Well, no, they'd like to know. They want to force us to have one, to pay more for a car.
They'd also like to use your money and my money to buy it for somebody else.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. What we should absolutely do is help very well-off people to buy a second. Most people I know have got an EV. It's their second car.
No, nice.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah,
you know.
that's all right.